You have the unfortunate timing of joining this indie TCG market after a ton of games have failed.
I'm committed to going to every single LGS. I don't care, Ted. Call me crazy. If you haven't realized it, us talking the last few hours, we're doing things our own way. I welcome the hot seat.
Let's say the product doesn't sell. You're saying they have no risk.
We're gonna put product in their store. They literally pay zero monies.
The bug theme itself is not my cup of tea. I don't want you to take offense.
I take as much offense for you to say that than my 9-year-old. But we take constructive criticism. We can take it back to the team.
In this video, I'm going to be talking with Luis Silva, the creator of Shard Bugs. I'm going to be approaching this discussion with a healthy dose of skepticism. You then have to decide for yourself. I tried my best to think on my feet. It's not going to be a perfect interview. At times we get off on a tangent. I'm not going to ask all the right things that you want me to ask. Feel free to post in the comments if you want to know more. With that said, I appreciate your time, everybody. Let's get into the discussion. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I am Ted from Ted's Basement. Today, I have Luis Silva, the creator of Shard Bugs, joining me today. We're going to be talking about Shard Bugs. Welcome to the show, man. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Ted. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get started, I want to just kind of set the stage. I think for people who know my channel, have been around for a while, I think the channel's almost 4 years old or something like that. They might be a little surprised to see me having another game on and having you on, because I went to sorcery probably a couple of years ago, and that's pretty much the only content I make. I want to be upfront with a couple of things. Right off the bat, Luis, you've supported my channel since, the very beginning. You jumped in, even your family members, and I really appreciate that. And so part of the reason I'm having you on is to sort of pay back some of that good karma. I see you in a lot of different discords for a lot of different TCGs. You've been a super fan for, I think, the whole time I've known you, and now you happen to have created a game. That said, you have the unfortunate timing of joining this indie TCG market after a ton of games have failed. You and I have both been burned emotionally and financially as fans of different games that have failed. As I was trying to prep for this video, and I'm looking at your cards that you sent me, which, by the way, thank you. Luis sent me about 5 sample packs, a comic book, as well as a couple of sorcery cards to say thank you for spending some time in making this video, which I appreciate, by the way. And as I'm looking through your stuff, I keep coming back to this new perspective that I have of almost being very calloused, and it doesn't feel good. So I do want to be clear that I want to separate you, the person that I've come to know for the last 4 years, and put that aside and say, look, you are now starting a new game. I got to try to turn the stones over. Let's just have some real conversations about the stuff that I'm now thinking about. And you said you were good with that. You know what you're getting into with this video. And you actually surprised me and said, you actually want that you.
Oh, I welcome the hot seat. I think.
Okay.
I am we're actually very excited because we share actually a lot of everything you just said, because before creating a TCG game, I was a TCG enthusiast, especially with all these indies, starting to enjoy all these indies roughly about the same time you did, which is at the birth of MetaZoo, and then everything that kind of followed after that. In backing many of these TCG games, and like you're saying, getting burned when you pledge at a Kickstarter, just to see 6 months to a year later that the game just doesn't even fulfill.
Why did you decide to go from super fan, highly invested into a lot of these games, and very engaged in these communities? You're not just poking around. You were just showing me earlier in a game that we are both members of, you're ranked 6 on their server in terms of activity. So you are engaged. How do you go from that to saying, I'm going to create a game?
That's a good question. There's really 2 big reasons why I decided to create TCG. First and foremost, for the love of my kids, right? My oldest was who actually inspired me to do it. and like asked me, "Hey, can you help me make this a real thing?" And if I have the ability to, I'm not gonna kind of spoil my kids, and I'm like, yeah, let's see what we can do here. So part of it is kind of taking up a challenge and an idea that my oldest had. Her name is Mia,
Hmm.
and when she showed me this, it was like a project she was working on, and she had already put together about like the first 10 cards. And my oldest,
Like before telling you about it.
before telling me,
Oh,
yeah, she
okay.
came with an iPad and she's like, "Hey, what about all
Okay.
these?" I'm like, my first impressions were for someone the age of 14, just how aesthetically pleasing it looked.
Are any of those original 10 in the game?
I will say that in the first set, they're not. Probably one of the most highly requested things. So I won't say if and when, but we're really looking into it. But my oldest Mia, she started drawing when she was literally 4 years old because we have photos,
Hmm.
and it's not like let's draw a little bit and then she'll go play in the swing set. Like she was like an addicted artist since 4 years old with notepad and pen, car rides, restaurants, everywhere we went, she was doodling. To the point where when she became 14, she was pretty darn skilled. So when she compiled the ideas, I was like, your drawing probably as good or better that I'm seeing other TCG games kind of put out in terms of art. I said, I think you're onto something. And what I also liked about it was the idea of like these intelligent bugs. It's a kind of a niche thing. It's its own
Hmm.
little idea, brand IP, if you will, but it's definitely in its own lane. Like I don't see anywhere else where you see, intelligent bugs that wield swords and magic. So it was her kind of request and idea, and then she her context too is she sees me, by this time having multiple businesses and
Hmm.
doing my thing and be able to kind of take an idea and make it happen. So when she asked me, she actually asked me pretty seriously because she, I guess, felt like I could do it. At the same time that she requests or she asked me, hey, can we do this project? I already had a little flicker of an idea that I wanted to create a game. I just didn't know if I really wanted to do it or not, or if I did, how to go about it, or what even to make it about. So I had a flicker of an idea that I wanted to do it, and the reason why I wanted to do it was joining the indie space and seeing some of the decisions that were being made. Some were great. There's definitely fun ideas out there, but some of the ideas that are more emotionally driven, if you will, some decision makings that are more emotion based than sound business practice,
Hmm.
logical sense. And I'm like, I feel like I could do this, and actually do it well. And then when she came up with the idea, I said, okay, maybe that's a sign. And then, so we actually formed the server like late September, early October of 2022. So,
Oh, really? That
um,
early?
yeah. And what it was is like the rest of 22 and basically all of 23, it was basically just working out the aesthetics, the art, and the concept. So I put together a little Discord, invited just a real small handful of folks, like 20 people that I kind of like, entrusted to get a little feedback and show some progress. And the first thing I did was I hired an artist by the name of Zip Draws.
Okay.
And Zip had done work with the Vanquishers TCG game. And I met Zip in person, became like a super fan of his art. And he's basically a comic book illustrator. He does digital art and traditional art. And I seen him at some cons. I bought some original paintings from him and some prints, and was following him on socials. And I said, man, if I'm gonna do something, like I want kind of like that aesthetic, this comic book kind of sketchy aesthetic, into the game. So I reached out to him, and we kind of worked out his schedule and all that. and we would sit down together like on like Twitch streams, and he would draw. He would ask me questions. I would give him feedback, and he was, we were kind of world building, if you will, all the characters early on, and it was really, I felt like I was ready to take the project to the next level about June of 24. We had enough art that I felt like the game had an identity,
Okay.
if you will. Like it had its own look, aesthetic, feel, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And we had about the first 30 pieces done, and that those amount of pieces were actually important because I had already kind of created the first few pre-constructed decks, and I already had my card list, but I wanted the art put together so I can kind of really put together real cards, if you will. And that was about June of 24. That's when I reached out to, um, kind of a long time friend of ours. I think you know him too, Jeeps. He goes by Jeeps on
Yeah.
Discord.
Yep.
And Jeeps is very well known in just about any indie
Mm-hmm.
TCGs. He's just kind of been around. He's actually kind of helped, if you will, mentor, guide, give advice to a bunch of previous TCG creators. He's been I think, a part of like 15 games,
Almost.
kind of helping kind of prep them for Kickstarter
Wasn't he an
and
admin too for some game? Or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Maybe some Discord admin roles or
he
something.
probably is. I mean,
Yeah.
he has been on probably like a Discord admin groups for a bunch of different games, and has, consulted or coached, if you will, other
Mm-hmm.
people, uh, and how to do things and whatnot. Mostly though on the side of printing. So his
Mm.
background is he really got to know and learn the whole logistics, right, and the whole back and forth SOPs, everything that you need to do to take basically print files and actually come up with physical products. So when I reached out to Jeeps, it was mostly for that. So he was actually my first hire after Zip Draws, was to go ahead and get Jeeps on board with my development team. And then he helped recommend a few other folks that he has come across from all his time working with indies. Um, and my next hire on the dev team was Kundu del Castillo. So Kundu del Castillo is an artist. He is like a savant level artist, and he's worked with probably four or five other indie TCG games. A couple of them actually they're currently going on a Kickstarter,
Mm.
and so I brought him on to do art. First, it was just art pieces and graphics for like the packaging. And then when I really seen everything in his wheelhouse, I put him as like the art director of my team. So he helped actually fill out my roster of artists. He helped onboard other artists he knew, and he's actively um, the one that goes through the process with the artists of giving them the prompts, of reviewing their sketch works, of give them edits, ideas to really get the most out of each piece. So he came in next. After that, I knew I needed somebody with editing skills. So I hired Scarlett. Scarlett is a technical writer and editor. She's also a level 2 magic judge, so she comes with
Mm.
a TCG background, right? So not only do I have an editor, but I have an editor that has the know-how and the background in the TCG space. So she helped me write a how to play guide for the game, and she also kind of edits, ads, and she's also a graphic designer. She's helped us put together the whole Kickstarter page and whatnot. From there, we hired Nate. Nate has worked also in the indie TCG space, creating card mechanics and all the mechanicals, all of the gameplay components to games.
Mm.
So he's my co-game developer. From there, we took on Jose, who goes by Jay Cyber. I actually met Jose from the Vanquishers team, was one of their developers as well, and he helped me out with the website design and also helps with like animation. Very good kind of person to make pictures really flashy. So, and our kind of our IT guy. My wife Alyssa does our social marketing, and basically I'm just kind of the brand's ambassador and
Hmm.
see everything from a 30,000 foot view, and that kind of makes up our development team there.
So I appreciate the the walkthrough, sort of like that early roadmap of building the game. I want to kind of loop back to your daughter shows you these 10 pictures. You've got this kind of inkling that there's a thing you want to do, but that's not enough for me to
Mhm.
feel. What was it that made you wake up the next day and said, screw it, I'm going to start a company?
That's a good question because it's actually stirring up memories. My first company I started, a general contracting firm in Southwest Florida. I started that company when I was 27 years old, and
Wow.
it yeah,
That's
this was
that's impressive. 27 is young.
thank you, thank you. And I started it because actually I had acquired my general contracting license,
Mm.
which is kind of a little bit a feat of its own. And this was, let's see, I actually founded the company December of 17, and it really became active early Q1 of 2018.
Mm.
And I never owned a company before, um, and I was the whole process of getting my licensing really drained me financially because it was a whole monetary investment. It was a whole kind of wait. I can't actively work on construction projects without my licensing. There's a few months of delay. So when I actually finally got my licensing and was able to start work, I was, I'm going to tell you the truth, I was down to $847, a broke down Ford Explorer, and one box of tools. That's how I started my company at the beginning of 2018. Um, and within 90 days of working my rear end off with my father, um, there was a light at the end of the tunnel sort of
Hmm.
look like, hey, we're doing something interesting here. And it was working 15-hour days, 6 days a week. By the end of the year, I was in a much better spot. And to the point where I said, okay, I want to level up this company, right? I want this construction company, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right. So I took a lot of business coaching classes and like a mentorship from some high level thinkers and people in the industry. I did that for like 2 years to the point where I was doubling the size of the business every single year consistently. And when I was, let's see, about 31, about 2021, 2022, um, I decided to open up my own, our second company, which was similar to what I had going on. It was another kind of construction company, but they wouldn't be competing together. One was really specialized in one particular niche, while my general contracting firm did just general stuff.
Just out of curiosity, how many employees did either of those companies have? I'll just say at their largest, because I'm sure you had different numbers of employees at different years.
So right now, my first company, which is my general contracting firm,
Hmm.
we have we're in the process actually of hiring two more this week. So I think we're up to about 25. I have like 25
Okay.
employees right now.
And
Um,
they're full time, part time, blend of both.
full time, full
Full
time.
time. Okay.
Yeah. So right now, so we build custom luxury homes, and we do kind of large, high end remodels and some commercial work as well. I have six project managers. I have three people in my office, and I have five tradesman crews out in the field. So it's pretty fleshed out.
The,
I would say in
I
my
mean
area
that's
we're
pretty significant. Do you
yeah
want to
we're
plug?
about a smaller mid-sized company, I guess, in my
Do you
area.
want to plug
So
the business name? It's totally your call. I mean, I know this isn't quite the right
um,
audience.
sure. Anyone in Southwest Florida looking for some repairs, especially after the storms, you guys can call LJ Silva Construction.
Okay.
What I was trying to do about 3.5 years ago, and it's all going to lead back into the card game. I assure you.
No, I think honestly, I think this is important background because something you said earlier, approaching it with a business mindset, this is something I wanted to get into because although I've known
Mhm.
you from the TCG space, you and I didn't really talk much about your other businesses. I think there's just maybe a couple, maybe a quick mention of it. In your Discord profile, you do mention it, and that was about it. So I think, I mean, for
Mhm.
me, this is very interesting. I would assume for people listening, this is very interesting to
Sure.
understand your business acumen prior to the game.
Sure.
Yeah, so feel
Yeah,
free to
I
dive
think
in.
yeah, I think looking at Shard Bugs where it stands now, I believe we've been able to kind of develop it to the point where it is now. Huge, huge shout out to the team. This is not a one person effort.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like my business background has kind of helped, if you will, formulate the team and kind of steer us in the right direction, if you will. So a few years ago, um, I started up my second company. We sell windows and doors, and we install them. So it's a window and door dealership. That was my second company. From there, I went ahead and partner up to kind of co-own a concrete block reinforcing steel subcontracting firm. That firm now is a multi seven-figure company. It's doing well. I also partnered up with a um, hurricane protection and shutter company.
Man, you're just
Uh,
getting into all of it.
yes, sir. And then so kind of co-owned and helped at that point they were a startup and kind of get them on their feet and coach them. So that's my fourth company. We bought out. I bought a farm. I have a farm company project in the works that we're developing to do pig farm.
Okay.
And the reason why all that kind of ties into shard bugs is about 6 months prior to shard bugs. For me actually starting up the company shard bugs, what I was what I was thinking, where my headspace was, my main construction company was running like a lot more on autopilot, right? And the reason is from all of my business mentorships and programs and just self improvement um, extracurriculars that I was doing while I was running my companies. It really helped me with the standardization of our processes, with kind of structuring out a company where everything has a process, everything has a way, rinse, repeat,
Mm.
and the construction company was doing well.
Do you have someone
Um,
managing it for you at this point?
so I'm still main CEO manager,
Mm-hmm.
but
But I mean, like the day to
everything.
day, like with 25 employees, I mean, you could have sort of employee issues and stuff. I mean, like is somebody kind of like middle management almost, so that you're not constantly getting pulled every
Yeah,
hour.
right. I kind of have two, if you will. I have
Okay.
one gentleman that is like my office manager, kind of runs the back house. And then I have another young gentleman, hyper intelligent, and I'm kind of coaching him to potentially replace me in the next upcoming years.
Okay.
So I got a kind of right hand man there. And I'm to the point where in all of my businesses, I'm more of a consultant.
Hmm.
So like in my main construction company, they come to me with like, hey, we got this really intricate, complex situation, the structural issue, this code compliance issue, and then I'm just, gosh, Ted's gonna sound a little arrogant to say, but I've just mastered my field to a point where they come to me with a problem and I give them an answer. I'm at a point where my companies are kind of on autopilot. They have their procedures in place.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of rinse and repeat. They're making customers very happy. Um, and um, and it was another reason why Shard Bugs was on my mind was, by this time I had like my fourth company, right?
Mm.
And I'm like, this is kind of fun. Like I'm actually enjoying this whole entrepreneurship, right? Of like creating a startup, putting all the pieces together, figuring out the right formula, if you will, for that company, and then just let it
Mm.
do its thing. And when I was thinking, I was like, I see all these TCGs that are starting up, and like some of them have really interesting concepts, some of them have fantastic art, some of them have potential, but then I feel like I'm like, I want to tell you, don't do that. Do it this way.
Mm.
Obviously, it's not my place, right? And opinionated in certain communities and say, hey,
Sure.
I think this is a bad idea, or this is a good idea, or what about this? And I poke and probe, and I do it. I only do it out of the love of the industry and out of trading cards, where you know, it, I feel like I try to pitch an idea or a thought, look at it from a player and a collector to see if the developer's like, hey, that makes sense. So I said, well, excuse me, I gotta take a sip of
Yeah,
go
do your thing. I'm gonna do the same.
dry. So I said, well, I'm in Discord. I'm pretty active, and I would love for say game A to do this, or I would love to be able to play game B more locally. I don't see them in my local LGSs, or I feel like this game has potential, but like why are they taking this route? They seem a little bit too small for like a distro. Maybe they go direct to consumer. And then ultimately, I'm like, none of these are my game. I have my opinions and my thoughts, but I can't control it, right?
Mm.
So it was burning in me. I was like, man, there seems to be a little bit of an opening, a little bit of an opportunity, a business opportunity
Mm.
to say, hey, I'm going to take my own opinions and ideas in the indie trading card game and actually just do it instead of complaining for this game not doing this or this game rugging and that game rugging. And that was actually another motivator too. Right when I was getting ready to listen to my daughter and start the company, I was just like, there was like, I'm not gonna name names, but there was like three big rugs in one year.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like late 22 into 23 of just companies, and Ted, we're talking projects that got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, nearing $1 million, and then just not delivering, or they delivered a set and then they don't have that next spark, if you will, to kind of get the next set going. So I said, I think I can do this. And when I put together the idea of putting the game, it was why is because I love TCGs. I feel like what other company, I would want to do other than something that I love doing as a hobby, right? So trading games are a passion of mine. So why not make a company? Because I'm here just wanting to like continue to push myself as an entrepreneur of creating more and more companies. I actually enjoy the process of starting up a new company
Mm.
and then making all the cogs work, if you will. To me, it's actually enjoying. Like I enjoy that part and that process of it. Seeing an opportunity in the TCG space, that I could make it happen, and then feeling, maybe a little bit naively that I could do it. Uh, knowing that when I ventured into this TCG endeavor, that it was never going to be a one man band, or I was
Right.
definitely going to
Right.
have to formulate a team. So
Well, just like your other businesses, they don't sound like they're a one man band either.
right.
Obviously, it's got to start somewhere. You got to plant the seed. Um, so the next place my mind goes then is because I was going to ask about your time, right? Like you've got these other businesses, they're operating, they sound successful. So where do you find the time for this? I think you kind of touched on that. You've got a lot of sort of like not automation machines, but your processes are set in place. They kind of run themselves for the most part, unless something unique comes up. So you kind of answered that already. Um, so how much time are you spending right now on developing shard bugs and managing the shard bug team and trying to grow the game?
Yeah, if I had to put like, if I had to clock myself how many hours I'm spending on shard bugs a week, realistically, I'm probably spending about 25 to 30 hours on shard bugs a week.
Okay. Is that your, in the grand scheme of all the things you do, is that your largest thing that you're working on?
I'd say it's about 50-50 with what I'm doing with my main construction company. So
with the what company?
with my general contracting firm, I feel like
Ah,
I put it in, between both, I'm probably putting in about a solid 70 hours a week of work, but it's right now it's about 50-50 construction to Shard Bugs.
okay. Are you worried about burning out with that, or is that your
No,
normal sort of like you're like a high tempo guy, and that's kind of like your normal?
I I don't know if it's I don't know if it's the fact that I'm just a workaholic, to be honest, Ted,
Mm-hmm.
or it's the fact that I have 7 kids and I have this hunger
Mm.
to succeed and give them a better future than I had. That little seed was instilled in me, like with my father. My father worked, his butt off so that me and my brothers had a better life than he did, and he always told me, our job as parents is just to make the next generation a little bit that much more successful than the current generation. Um, so that's why I kind of work a lot. I work a lot for the love of my kids. Um, I'm a young guy. I feel like I'm not burned out a lot. Like my construction job at this point is pretty low stress and pretty fun.
Mm.
Shard Bugs is very low stress and just amazing fun. So half the time I don't even feel like I'm working. I'm just doing something I love. And to be honest, long term vision, if Shard Bugs, you know, becomes a hit and becomes successful, I see myself probably selling off uh,
Mm.
some of my other companies and focusing 100% full time on Shard Bugs. It's actually my kind of end goal.
Would
We'll
you
see.
see it sounds like you're already fairly successful, right? So it's not like you had to start Shard Bugs, right? I mean,
No,
you
not at all.
had plenty of income coming in. So it sounds like it's a thing of passion. Um,
Right.
would you ever, if Shard Bugs grew larger, and I don't know how to quantify, how large it would have to be, would you ever consider selling it off to a big game company, or is this maybe the better question? You could still answer that one, but it's more like, what is your intention for the game, right? Like, are you just trying to make like a super fun casual game? It's like these are game pieces, or are you trying to
Hmm.
make something that's like got that rarity, that
Hmm.
collectability? It's going to have like some degree of secondary market with the playability and the
Hmm.
like. Are you trying to do that trifecta, right?
Hmm.
Like, what is your intention for the game?
So my intention for the game, so I don't need any income from Shard Bugs to be fine. It's just a fact, um, which is why I think is a plus and a benefit. I have heard stories of other game creators that misappropriate funds they get from the Kickstarter or whatnot, right? So we've all heard certain stories. There's no reason to
Mm-hmm.
stir the pot there. Um, Anything that Shardbucks does goes back into the company. Like, how is it not going to succeed, right? So it's all we're all I'm going to reinvest and make stronger Shardbucks as a company. I'm doing it because I love trading cards. It's my hobby. My whole family loves it. It's their hobby. I love going to conventions, right? So now instead of just going to conventions and hanging out and buying, fluffy stuffed animals and whatnot, I'm gonna go there to showcase my game and sell it and play with other people's and increase awareness for shard bugs. I love going and frequenting LGSs, so I see myself going to LGSs and being able to enjoy um, hosting events, running events, partaking in events, just being there at the stores. I like going to competitive events. So something that I'm going to do with Shardbugs, we're actually hosting events, and then further into the podcast, I'll be a little more specific about that. Um, why am I doing Shardbugs? I'm not doing Shardbugs because I want to make a bunch of money and run off to the sunset. I'm making shard bugs because I love TCGs and now I have a chance to make my own in my own way with what I feel are the right decisions. And I want to make a game that is both playable and enjoyable and I want to make a game that's both collectible. Some people think that you can't really straddle that line, or some of us feel that certain games cater too much to one side than the other. And I'm not saying that I've already cracked that perfect nut and figuring all that out, but it's my one of my most hugest focus in directing my development team is make sure this game is super fun to play, um, and also make sure that it's fun to open packs and find those cool cards, right? And for the chase of it, I'm a collector. I like opening something, completing sets, and looking at foils and getting stuff created. Oh, that's fun.
Do, do
So
you
I'm really trying to straddle the line of doing both.
do you think it's dangerous when indie games specifically start getting too big of a secondary market too early? Like people start putting in too much money into cards before the game has proven itself. Do you
Mhm.
think that's dangerous?
The question you're asking can be answered from two perspectives,
Sure.
right? There's the perspective of the individual who's either speculating maybe too hard on something, maybe putting too much of their own money into the game too early on, or the people that are buying the cards, these early on cards, at too high of a price. So there's the perspective of, just be careful, right? At the end of the day, all of this is cardboard. Whether it's Magic, Sorcery, Yu-Gi-Oh, Lorcana, whatever. Um, you know, as a person who's doing this more on the collecting and I guess more on the investment side, you know, tread any game with caution, right? Um, as a part, as looking at it from the perspective of a game, if values are high early on, you really just you get eyes on it. It's really not a bad thing. If anything, it's more attention, it's more awareness, and it's not necessarily a negative. Looking at it from a game development side, I suppose.
Sure. Yeah, from the fan side, it's a risk.
Hmm.
Um, I myself, I've got full complete sets from, I want to say, pretty much every game that I've gotten involved in the last 4 years. And I still have those sets today. Those sets serve a few purposes. For one, I really tried to buy stuff I enjoyed. So even if the game is gone, I still enjoy the thing, and I do crack the binders out and get that value out of it that way.
Hmm.
But also they serve as an important metaphor, or because the, depending on the game, a lot of those sets are just sunk cost, right? Like you're not going to get anything back out of it.
Hmm.
Um, and I made a conscious choice to just, the money is spent, hold it and be done, but also use it as a reminder, right? Of like, there were certain times when I got involved and just fell in love, like almost like in real life, like head over heels, kind of like you're not thinking clearly almost. It's not an easy pill to swallow, but it's a lesson. It's a lesson learned. And for that reason, um, I don't think I'm ever going to get into another indie TCG again personally. Sorcery, I think, is my last one, and you and I have talked about that.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's just me. Um, I really, I had such a roller coaster ride over the last 4 years that I don't have any left in me, like,
Hmm.
any gas left in my
Hmm.
tank to take on another game. Um, Everybody has to do soul searching who's been around through all this and has to decide for themselves if that's them or not. I assume if they're watching this video, they're still interested in, finding something out there. I do want to caution people, and it sounds like you're saying the same thing, that's like, buy these things responsibly,
Hmm.
buy them if you enjoy them, if you love them, don't treat this secondary market like the stock market. It's not. If you want to, then go buy actual securities in the stock market and figure that out, right? So yeah, I mean, would you agree with all that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the reasons why we're having the discussion in this way that we're having it, and with a bit of scrutiny on shard bugs, as you should, or into any TCG, is, you know, collectors, are sometimes can get it, they can get really heavily involved in a game. Players can also really get heavily involved in a game, because if I'm a player and I'm looking at a new game, I'm hesitant to back Kickstarters now. I seldom do nowadays. It's because I feel like, well, even at a player, right, at a player level, I want to back a game that in 2 or 3 years, and hopefully 2 or 3 sets later, it's still there. Because if not, then I've learned to play this game just for a little while, and then so be it.
Mm-hmm.
Even players want to look for longevity. That's why. That's actually why I really wanted to do this discussion with you, is because, for all the reasons and all the decisions that I'm making and the team is doing, is I feel like we're making the decisions for longevity, um, for entertainment to players, and for collectability. I feel like we're taking a holistic and long term view as a company, Shardbugs, so that it's around in years from now. So yes, I mean, when you're looking into getting into a new game, and mind you, Ted, we're talking about TCGs specifically.
Yeah,
If we're
sure.
talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
if
Cause
we're
there
talking
are,
about video games, right?
well,
You
even
pay
other types of card games, we have to be clear. There are other types of card games
correct
I'm trying to think of all the ones like, uh,
LCGs and
expandable,
yeah,
there's
expandable card
CCG,
games.
ECG. Well,
Hmm.
they don't all play in this sort of like secondary market TCG collector space. They're
Hmm.
just game pieces, right?
Right.
And well, this is a really bad example, but it's like Uno, right? Like
Hmm.
Uno is not a collectible card game.
It
Um,
was, but actually, they came out with a TCG. Fun fact,
did
like
they?
literally
Okay, I
recently.
I don't know anything about that, but it's kind of that scenario where when you choose to get involved in the TCG space, you're making an intentional decision to make something collectible and
Hmm.
rare, and try to find that way to make it super special, so that
Hmm.
in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's something that it doesn't have value just for the sake of having value or being old. It has value because people actually want it, because
Hmm.
for one reason or another, whether it was the gameplay, the nostalgia, whatever it was from when the early days of the thing, it grew bigger over time. So now they
Hmm.
actually, like the Black Lotus in Magic the
Hmm.
Gathering, it's a piece of cardboard just like any other card, but people want that card. Like
Hmm.
Magic doesn't even have to do anything
Hmm.
about Black Lotus to make people want that card. People want it. They want it for nostalgia. They want it because well, there is a huge player base, and we all know that it's super powerful if you play in a format that allows it to be played in. And even if you don't, it's never going to lose the iconic, it's just an icon, of the
Hmm.
game. So, but back in the day, it was never that. I mean,
Hmm.
people were throwing alpha cards out in the garbage before they knew what it was.
Yeah.
And so, I have a buddy. Actually, I was going to try to get him on the show one of these days. He has a Black Lotus,
Hmm.
and he's been a friend of mine for a long time. And I always wanted to get him on with the Lotus and talk to me about it. If memory serves, he spent like a few $100, and he
Hmm.
thought that was a lot, and people thought
Yeah,
he was
that's what he
crazy.
did.
They
Yeah.
thought he was crazy. So to me, those are the stories that indicate like real value. I do in quotes because I technically don't think anything has real value. All
Hmm.
value is subjective,
Hmm.
right? Like value is other humans agreeing that something is worth it. But people thought he was crazy for $300. And now the thing's worth who the heck knows how much, right? Well, we don't get that in the indie TCG space anymore because people know that Magic and Pokemon had that sort of like boom of the investor side of it. And so now nobody can look at an indie TCG the same way again. See, the way it should come out is Shard Bugs or any other game should come out, and everybody should be looking at that thinking like it's just a piece of cardboard. We have no idea if this thing's going to become anything. And so, like, why would I pay you any more than like a few dollars per card? Now, I understand as I say that, I'm over here guilty of spending $1,000 on a super rare foil special thing. And because the reality is, we do know that games like Magic, Pokemon, Flesh and Blood, you keep going on down the list, do have a collector value that people generally agree to. And so we can't ignore that now. And so that speeds up the purchasing of the special stuff, the rare stuff on the secondary market. And I just think that at times it can get a little dangerous because sometimes it feels like there's just no stop until there's something unnatural that stops it. And then you get that fear, you get the people are unsure because the game hasn't been around long enough to be sure. Like everybody can always be sure about Pokemon now. They can always be sure about Magic. I mean, it would really take a nuke to take Magic out. All the indies have that problem though, because if you haven't been around for 20 years, then we just don't know. And so that fear happens and they're like, oh, that $1,000 card, I better dump it for $9 because, you know, something has me afraid. And then somebody else sees that happen and they're like, well, I better dump mine for $8 because I don't want to wait around until it's worth $200. Right. So like, then you have this race to the bottom out of fear. And I just feel like it's a really dangerous thing. And I didn't fully understand it 4 years ago when I started this channel.
Right.
And I understand it today more than ever before. And again, that's why one of the reasons I enjoy my sets. I really do love them, but they are reminders to make better decisions in the future. And I know you're on here trying to get the word out for your game and everything. And, you know, from a creator standpoint, you have that perspective of like, hey, that added value, that added hype. I mean, it's marketing for your game. People will talk about it, right? And like word of mouth will spread and, you know, all kinds of good stuff for the game. But then you are a super fan. I've seen you be a fan and only a fan. Like I knew you before you created a game. So I know you feel the hurt on the other side. So this is like a really interesting, I'm even kind of like a little conflicted, right? Like, where's this going to go? All that said, guys, a lot of this is because I want the viewers of the show, of this video, to have their thinking gears turning. I want you to assess this stuff for yourself. Like, I don't have all the answers, right? Like, I am one opinion, and I assume, Louis, you would agree. Like, everybody has to hear it out, assess for yourself. And there might be some people that have come in the last year, and they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And just, I don't know what else to say. Just be responsible. I'll leave you guys with this on this particular topic, and we can go back into Shard Bugs. Be responsible with your funds. Buy the stuff that you really love and enjoy, and it's harder to go wrong that way because even if the game dies, then at least you've got something you can enjoy. But I almost would say, like, buy it assuming it'll fail, and then you've lowered your expectations so much that you won't even be mad. You'll probably be sad because you'll be like, damn, I love this game. Like, I really wish it's stuck. So every card I've bought, like in the last couple of years, that's how I buy it. Just like, look, man, it's going to be sad if this thing goes, but I'm buying it right now thinking it might. And I'm going to have to be okay with it because it's my decision. I have to own that decision. I don't want to see any fans of any games hurt. And so for that reason, I do want games to succeed, if only for the fans' sake, but then also for the creators as well, because I think both sides get hurt. So that said, we can get back to Shard Bugs unless you want to have any closing thoughts on that topic, and we can put that to bed.
I guess the way I enjoy TCGs is twofold. So I don't enjoy TCGs because I want to buy a card, and I'm hoping that some days, weeks, months, years later, it's worth a lot more. My. That's not my. That's not my thing. I get into TCGs for two reasons. I play the games, so I actually love
Mm,
playing the stuff that I buy. First and foremost, and then I also like completing sets. I'm kind of a completionist. I want a binder with all set one of this game, set two, like that. I like collecting and having the whole completed sets. So that's my two ways to enjoy a TCG. Um, and then just uh, for example, I know you talked about the Alpha Black Lotus.
hmm
The Alpha Black Lotus became as valuable right now as a collectible it is because of playability. So
Yeah.
the more, I mean, that it is scarcity, right? Um, but it wasn't artificially made scarce, and then hey, it's worth $1 million already. It's because it was really cool to play, and then that added with the scarcity, and then that you have its value. But I'm not here to promise anyone that if you buy a booster box of shard bugs that five extra money in 90 days. That's first of all, as a dev and as a creator, I want to stay a million miles away from the secondary market, in my view. And because I know from being in the indie TCG space, there has been creators that tinker, if you will, with the
Mm.
secondary market, and that's a big no-no. It's a big red flag.
But you still need
Um,
to acknowledge it does exist,
it
right?
does exist, right?
Yeah.
I
And
understand
because
that.
you've got like, I want to say, I think I've heard, Rudy from Alpha Investments say a bunch of times like Magic tries not to acknowledge it. I don't know if maybe they do now, but there were like periods where they didn't. I feel like it rubs me the wrong way. Like just acknowledge it at least,
Mhm,
especially a company that big. It's like they know
mhm,
it exists and everything. And to your
right,
point, yeah, the moment that they tinker with it is when you start getting into some challenges there. So
right.
yeah.
But the reason, my I guess that's kind of my closing thoughts. I want to make the game collectible because why? I mean, I like collecting. I like set collecting, right? So and to me, that's just another way to enjoy the card pieces. But first and foremost, it's a game, and I want to lead into that with a small little story, if you will.
Go ahead.
Um, I took this game to my local LGS. When I mean local, like I can almost walk there, and I frequent it a lot. I've actually tried to introduce two other indie games into it that
Mm-hmm.
have unfortunately not taken root, if you will. So when I came with this game, I said, "Hey, I have a new game," and they're like, "Okay," and I said, "Yes, it's an indie, but hear me out. Play it, play it." And I was there. Oh boy, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I brought three pre-constructed decks and two playmats. And I said, "Hey, you guys want to give the game a shot?" Okay. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon a few weeks ago. They sat down. This LGS had two co-owners and one employee. The three of them came down, and I showed the first one how to play the game. Um, and then he got up, and then it was one of the owners, and then the employee sat down. And he got the gist of it, and then I got up and I let the second owner sit down. Ted, they had a ongoing standard magic event. This was a Saturday, but they had a standard event with like almost 30 people playing magic.
Okay.
They almost like literally forgot that that was happening and played Shard Bugs for 6 hours straight.
Dang.
And they, I mean, and I could see it in their facial expression
Mm-hmm.
when they grabbing two cards and they're understanding the synergy
Mm-hmm.
and putting combos together because I feel Shard Bugs has strategic depth, but for anyone who's touched almost any other game, it's very user friendly, and I think it's really easy to catch on the game literally in just one or two games. You kind of get the feel and the mechanics and the movements. Obviously, it takes a little longer, especially with the extended card pool, to really get all the combos and synergies together. But you could just see like they're like verbalizing excitement and wide eyed and like, oh, if I do this and if I do that and if I move this, and they're just like literally having a ball for 6 hours straight. And it was like 7 o'clock. I said, "All right, guys, I gotta go. I gotta go eat dinner." And they're like, "Can we borrow the decks?" Excuse me here. They're like, "Yeah, can we borrow the decks because we want to keep playing?" So I loaned them the decks, and in leaving, like they said, one of the coolest things. They were like, one of them said, one of the owners said, "Your game um, plays similar to Lorcana, and I know how to play Lorcana, but I don't like playing Lorcana. But I feel like you took the game and you made it better. You fixed it, and I want to play it." So I was like, "Well, you compare me to another game, okay?" But I accept and love that compliment. Like he said, "Hey, it plays similar to this, which I don't like playing, but you fixed it and you made it so much more enjoyable, and now I want to play it." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, I
So
don't think you're going to be able to avoid the getting compared to other games.
yeah,
Like
sure,
that's,
sure.
and what's funny too is sometimes compares that you get comparisons that kind of like make sense, but then there's other times where they're like they just don't make sense at all. But
Right.
it's the nature of the beast, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I mean that's interesting. Is that do you know, have you had conversations with that particular LGS about putting your product on shelves, or was it just too early?
So yes and yes. Actually, I had a conversation with them, put it on the shelf, and the same deal and speech I gave them, I'm gonna give to other LGSs. So 3/4 of the product that I have already produced, okay, and we're gonna put that into the Kickstarter. We'll elaborate on to why we're doing a Kickstarter and what I mean about the product we
Mm-hmm.
produced. But we're actually saving 25% of the product, and we're taking a very localized grassroots movement approach of reaching out to LGSs just in the state of Florida for the first release.
Okay.
And we're gonna pick 20 stores. I've already been reaching out and emailing them. I'm getting really good responses, and we're gonna basically put product in their store on consignment. They literally pay zero monies. So we give them all the product. We give them displays so they can put the product in a nice,
Mm-hmm.
organized way that's branded. We're gonna give them 5 foot tall character stands that's gonna draw attention. Like, hey, what is this 5 foot tall caterpillar looking guy doing in the middle of the LGS? And all that will be free to them. And then it's on consignment. So as they sell, then we square up, so to speak. Um,
So they have, you're saying they have no risk. Like for
they have no
example,
risk.
let's run through a scenario. Let's say the product doesn't sell. They don't owe you anything. They just have to give the product back at some
They
point,
just
or
have to give the product back. That's it.
okay. And you'll work it out to where if they sell some portion, they just pay for the portion they sell, and then if they don't sell the other portion, again, same thing, they would give the product back. Basically, at one point, you either got to give back some portion of product or you give back cash because you've sold product. Either way, you get square.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm sure you'll handle out like all the details probably some other time in writing or once you're
Hmm.
ready to actually like roll that out.
Yep.
But how would an LGS like register for that kit?
So there's two methods. So like I said, we are I'm reaching out to stores here in Florida to see
Mm-hmm.
who's interested. It's almost like first come first serve basis on the my selected 20 here in Florida. Now, the Kickstarter is another opportunity for you to become an LGS partner. There will be an LGS tier that is heavily discounted. We want to make sure our LGSs are making money and they're happy. And when they pledge that tier, they would get the same thing. They get the displays, the floor characters. They get the product at a heavy discount,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they get organized play kits. So we're doing organized play kits where if you host a tournament on a weekly basis and you have X amount of people, your top eight all get this really cool, flashy photo card, and that they give that out as prizes. And they also track points, so you can actually have a monthly league And if the players come on a weekly basis, they every time they win a match, they get a point. And at the end of the month, the top three scorers, if you will, the top three people with the most score points get actually these really nice Shard Bugs enamel pins.
So are you saying you're going to have like an online gaming network where the LGS would like track those points and submit them back to your system, or like how would it work?
So we actually paired up with Best Coast Pairings, which is a it is a online league tracking, statistics tracking program. So yes, you'll be able to um, input your games into the Best Coast Parents Shard Bugs network, track players and their progress, but we're also handing them out, these really big banner sheets where they can actually write physically
Hmm.
the players' names and just keep manually track of their points as well. But they get organized play kits as long as they're active, right? So you get your first
Hmm.
3 month kit, so the kits will be good for pricing for up to 3 months. And we just want to see if you're actually using the kits and actually registering players and there's activity and they're playing. At the end of the 90 days, if you have actually successfully used the kit and are trying to grow and engage and make a Sharpbus community, you get your other 90-day organized play kit for free right after. So we're going to continue that process.
And if they go through the Kickstarter LGS tier, that they're obviously they're paying for the tier, so that would mean
That's right.
they're not going to do the consignment path.
Right.
They've paid for product. Now you had said it's at a discount, but it's
Right.
it's not the same as the consignment tier
That's
kit.
correct. So
Okay.
it is two methods. So the Kickstarter is a paid
Okay.
uh, LGS
So
brick and mortar tier. But the reason why I wanted to do a Florida consignment is because it's it's our first set. We have four developers of Shardbucks are located in Florida, myself included, and we feel like each of us have our own territories, and we can actually go to all of these LGSs in Florida and really help nurture and grow the game. We're not just going to say, hey, here's product on consignment, right? Great, it's no risk to you. And then that's it. Just let them be. The Florida tour, if you will, is to get them product on consignment and then follow back and say, hey, on this date, we're going to do a learn to play. I'm going to go and buy pizza. Tell them it's going to be a pizza party on Shard Bugs, and then we're gonna come and show you how to play the game. Open up some what we call splat boxes. I'll show you what a splat box is here. So this is a splat box.
are you ready to share what's in it, or are you
Let's open this up. You want to open this up?
it's your call. I
Yeah,
if you're ready to share what's
I'm
inside.
ready. Let's do this. All right. So here's a splat box. This is our entry level product for Shard Bugs. Okay. MSRP $45. Okay. But let's see what you get for that value. Okay. So when you open this up, okay, so there's a nice little seal. Okay. When you open this up, the reason why we call this our entry level product, it has everything you need to really get your feet wet, so to speak, into the world of shard bugs. Okay. First of all,
If you hold it center chest, it'll be perfect. Of Yeah, and then up just about 3 more inches, 4 more inches. Perfect, right there.
okay.
Yep.
So that's the splat box, and then I'll start taking out some of its components. But basically, I'll save this one for last and I'll explain why. So you have a learn to play guide. Okay. So it's going to teach you the game. Beautifully made and edited by Scarlett. Great job, Scarlett. You have a paper playmat. If you unfold this, it's all zoned out, so you know where to put the cards, and it's the size of a real playmat. You have three pre-constructed decks. So here's our Meteor Falls deck. Okay, Solar Storm, Lunar Tide. So you get three pre-constructed decks. They're ready to go. You also get a beautiful 20 D20 dice. It's a spin down, and this is used to track your devotion,
Is
which the
there
shard
a
bugs the way
is
you
there a
want.
Shard Bug logo on that, or is it generic?
Shard bugs logo.
Okay, cool.
So, so you get a cool custom shard bugs dice, three pre-constructed decks, learn and play guide, and you actually get three first edition booster packs. That's a nice little box.
Nice.
So you're able to open these packs up and take your pre-con decks and kind of modify them and kind of make them your own, so to speak. So you get kind of the whole experience of being able to open up some packs, having the decks, your devotion counter, the learn and play guide, and the play map, all
Now,
in the flat.
and that's going to be on the Kickstarter.
It's going to be on the Kickstarter,
Okay.
yes. Okay. So, but this is also a great tool to onboard new players. So when we go to the LGSs and we're doing the Florida tour, and for the folks that are not in Florida, we're going to travel. So you wait. Um, so the great thing is we could take these splat boxes or pre-con decks and do a fantastic learn and play event, right? And the great thing about it is the pre-cons have been meticulously kind of balanced by our playtest teams, and they're all right there neck and neck. Their power level, they're all about the same. So you're not really having someone that has a super hyper meta deck versus a casual deck, and there's like a imbalance of play and all that. So it's a fantastic way to do a learn and play event, and to see how many people are interested and want to give it a try. And then from there, if they enjoy the game, the entry level is pretty low just to try it out, if you will. And then if they like it, that LGS will sell them booster packs and boxes, and there'll be we got binders in the works, deck boxes and sleeves. So yeah, we're not just gonna in the Florida circuit. We're not just gonna say here's product on consignment and good luck. It's here's product, here's an organized play kit. We're gonna give you a guide on how to use that organized play kit, and we're gonna go and do a learn to play event with you. And then once we kind of mastered, if you will, and have a foothold here in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully for the next set that comes out, we will be able to venture off to the greater US and be able to duplicate that process. This is a subsection of the greater discussion on collectability, and collectability to me is the byproduct of a good game, right? If you have a good game and your game's around for 30 years like Magic, but the older pieces are a bit scarce, naturally they should probably hold some value, if you will. If that really is an importance to you.
It's a tough game to balance
Sure.
that. It's dangerous if it goes too much too fast. When you've reached a certain status, like when Magic was 5 years old, there was a certain amount of value in their secondary market. When they were 10 years old, there was likely more value. When they were 15, there was more. When there was 20, there was more. I feel like there is a danger there, and the risk goes up more when that secondary market value goes too fast, before, like, almost where it's not commensurate with the age of the game. Now that's just the collector piece. From the player side, look, you're buying stuff at MSRP. If you're buying pre-con decks and booster boxes and you're having fun with it and you're opening it, you're buying the product. I mean, it's the same thing as, like, you go buy, I don't even know, some other a toy or Legos or something at MSRP and you enjoy the thing. That's what it is at MSRP. I think that the risk really ramps up when you get into the secondary market and the collector side. So I'm not sure how this is going to unfold for Shard Bugs, right? It's too early now. Yeah. I do think a lot of people have learned, though. So I'm just hoping that people don't go too crazy, and just treat it with some caution. I just don't want to see it go into like a dangerous area. That's all.
Well, what I can say is, um, for me, Shard Bugs is a game. Is a passion. It's a company first, and as my company first approach, Ted, I have no control over the secondary. I don't know what they're gonna say and how much they're gonna value it. I really, not that I don't care necessarily. That's not my focus.
Yeah.
Right? My focus is ensuring the longevity of the game and ensuring that we don't grow too fast or too slow, which is where that's my bread and butter. That's where
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to do with my other companies. My other companies have traditionally, like clockwork, have doubled in size every year, year on year, over year. And for me, doubling is actually pretty quick, but for me, it's very controllable. Now, that's strategically why I'm doing the 20 stores in Florida on consignment. It is a manageable amount. It is a foothold in a certain geographical area, and from there we'll branch out to the greater US. That's me showing as that's my business, mindset
Mm-hmm.
in targeting strategic growth for the game. And there's actually a reason why I'm targeting Florida as a launching pad, literally just for set one.
Mm-hmm.
So once set two comes out, we'll be on to the greater US. We're doing it because once we onboard these LGSs and we give them the organized play and we get the feedback and we're able to do the learn the plays, I have promised that the 10 most active stores, I'm going to give them a $1,000 cash prize, um, so they can run a 1K tournament at that
Mm.
local LGS. And we're doing it strategically. And this is where the geographical area comes into play. Um, we're going to start this circa late August into early September. And the first 1K tournament will be maybe it'll be Tampa, Florida. The next week, it could be Sarasota at this other LGS store. But guess what? The players from Fort Myers and Tampa and Orlando, they're all going to drive to come to this event because it's a 1K tourney. Why not, right? And they're all within a certain geographical area. From there, it could be Fort Myers the third week and so on and so forth. We'll do a circuit of 10 1K tournaments. That's going to lead into our November 8th event. I've already secured a the Charlotte County Fairgrounds in Port Charlotte, Florida, to host on November 8th a 10K tournament. Okay, so so strategically targeting one state allows for a condensed player field in a geographical region, and it's gonna be able to facilitate these events. Um, I won't say, be very respectful not to like this particular game or that particular game, but where I have seen other indies fail is spreading themselves too thin, right? Spreading themselves across the whole greater US, maybe even internationally. And they're still a small dev team, okay? And they're trying to, what do you do then? How do you facilitate folks in Europe, and how do you facilitate, folks around the globe? Now, that's not to discourage anybody, right, from other states and other countries not to participate on the Kickstarter. I encourage it, right? Because you could grab something from the Kickstarter, and because right after set one releases, we're gonna go on tour. We're gonna hit Baltimore. We're gonna hit Texas. We're gonna hit California. What we're going to do is we're going to duplicate what worked in Florida, work with
Mm.
LGSs over there, onboard those LGSs, give them the organized play kits, give them all the displays and the stands to attract attention, offer them 1K tournaments. We're going to duplicate what we did with the first tour throughout the greater US. And as soon as we get the greater US dominated, hey, I
So
want to go visit France, right? I
are,
want to go to Japan. Why not? So
are
from
you
there,
gonna
we'll
do
tackle the globe after.
that model you just described? Like, you're gonna do that in specific states around the U.S., not all 50 that
So
way,
we
right? Like,
obviously we want to be a whole national brand, maybe
no,
international
no, but I
brand.
mean like the how did you call it? It was like the density, the dense like prize support thing with like
Right.
the small geographical area, plant the seed. You've got, it's dense in a state. What I'm saying is like, you're not going to do that in all 50. Like, you're going to do some strategic states, but then just roll out to the rest. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, after Florida, there are states that make sense to prioritize.
Yeah.
Florida just so happens to be a mecca for trading card games.
Mm-hmm.
there's a plethora of LGSs. I mean, Florida is huge. I'm going to call it probably the capital even of all of America in trading card games. But it's very quickly followed by Texas,
Okay.
by California, and then the Northeast. So it makes sense after Florida. Well, let's go head over to Texas. Let's go head over to Cali. Let's go to the Northeast, and from there we'll be able to then to spread it
Then you'll
more
spread it.
naturally
Okay.
to fill
That's
in
what
the rest of the maps, if you
yeah,
will.
I was just trying to understand that roadmap because not that my opinion matters, but that feels like it makes more sense than trying to do
Hmm.
like each individual of the 50 states like one at a
Right.
time until you hit the whole thing.
Hmm.
I was going to ask uh you're in Florida, Rudy's in Florida. Are you going to
Hmm.
send this game to Rudy and see if he shows any interest? I know that he's mentioned before he gets a lot of people sending him games, and I don't even know if he probably doesn't even look at a lot of them just because there's just so many. Are you going to attempt that channel or just move on and let it be?
Okay. So, um, full disclosure. Okay. Rudy is going to get a Shard Bugs care package. Okay. Actually, Ted, it's going to be. Let's see. We're recording this Saturday. It's going to be shipped out Monday. Okay.
Okay.
Along with my,
D- does he
little
know? Does he know, or is it just gonna be a surprise?
Shard Bugs. Let's just say that Shard Bugs is in Rudy's radar of a game to review. We'll mention how or
Okay.
why. But
Do you know like have you? I think you've told me in the past you've been a Rudy patron before. Like, do you know Rudy beyond just like buying selling cards stuff that he?
no, no, no. I will say with Rudy, you know, Rudy's interesting guy. Um, Rudy, I've always enjoyed Rudy's videos. I don't know, maybe it's the middle schooler in me, but I watch Rudy videos and I chuckle and giggle every single time, right?
I do have
Uh,
to say, like, one of my personal favorites. I was watching from the very beginning. He's eating tacos for dinner, and he
uh,
chucks a taco at the wall. And he's eating. People don't realize this unless they watch the whole video. He's actually not wearing pants. He's clothed. I mean, he has like some
yeah,
undergarment on, but I don't remember if he's like a dress shirt or what the shirt was. But I remember
okay.
he's eating tacos. He's telling stories. He's pissed about something. He throws a taco at the wall, but then at the end of the video, gets up and you see he's not wearing pants.
Some people enjoy Rudy's content. I
Yep.
think some people dislike Rudy's content. So I acknowledge that there's people kind of in both spectrums, right?
Yep.
I'm acknowledging that. I feel as a trading card player collector, um, Rudy has his place, right? Rudy um, is a collector. He's also a retailer, right? Obviously, and he's also trying to guide other people that are viewing collectibles for more so that purpose for the
Mm-hmm.
collectability, right? He's trying to guide them in the right direction of whether something he feels is collectible or how the prices are going. He's definitely a secondary talking kind of guy that has his purpose. As a TCG player and collector, shard bugs misses aside, I do know that there's players and there's scalpers and there's
Mm-hmm.
collectors and there's investors, and to a degree, as long as there's not an imbalance, like too many scalpers trying to take advantage of the players and this and that, whatever. If done correctly, you could have a healthy ecosystem, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's players out there that want people to open boxes and sell singles because they don't want to do that. They just want to
Mm-hmm.
go buy the singles, right? So there is a need, there's a demand from players and collectors to just buy an individual piece to finish a collection or to finish a deck. And there's people who open boxes and they open packs and then they sell these singles, and it could be a main, it could be a TCG brick and mortar LGS. It could be, just an online retail guy. It could be a part-time gig for somebody. So I mean, it's a whole ecosystem, and if
Sure.
done
Well,
correctly, and
even as a player, like, I mean, I've sold singles because I open boxes. I'm trying to complete sets and trying to make decks, but I get tons of duplication. Now I have a
Mhm.
whole thing of bulk, right? Like you really can't do anything with that. And I'm
Sure.
I'm generally not a person that sells bulk for like the
Hmm.
cheap 20 $30. I just keep it all. But like if I open, like I remember I was going for a full set of foils for beta for sorcery. I'll just say an example. I mean,
You're a
I've got
brave guy.
full foil sets of magic. I've got all kinds of stuff. But if I pull a second foil and I already have it in the set, I'm going to sell it on eBay. What am I going to
Sure.
do with it? Not unless it's something like I
Hmm.
truly love that foil and I'm going to have sometimes I do get a second copy and I put it up on a shelf, right? But other than
Hmm.
that, you're going to have that too, right? So
Hmm.
even people that are collecting sets and building decks are going to sell their duplicates.
Sure. Yeah. And kind of to tie it back into Rudy, so like Rudy, there's plenty of channels out there that are just box openings. There's channels
Mm-hmm.
dedicated to gameplay, and then there's Rudy, who his niche in the content creation is to advise, or just not necessarily advise so much. It's more of just discussing market trends and the
Mm-hmm.
collectibles, right? And that's his thing. And I think he does it very well. And he obviously has a big following and whatnot. I think it's pretty cool what he did. If done right, it could be good. With say sorcery, he had the promos. Some of those promos were really cool, really
Mm-hmm.
killer art. I love the witch.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a Boris one, isn't there? There's Boris. There's Frazetta.
right,
He's got some different like well-known artists in there too.
sure. So yeah, I mean, I personally enjoy watching his videos. I think he's an entertaining guy. I understand he plays a big role in the collector side of the market. We are going to send him a care package, right? It makes sense. And you know what? I'm sending Rudy a care package. I actually wasn't. The reason why I'm sending Rudy a care package, Ted, is I watched a video of his in January.
Mm-hmm.
It was a video where he said, "Hey, in this year, 2025, there's going to be maybe a resurgence, if you will, of a bunch of indies coming out."
Mm.
And I remember watching that video, my ears perked up. I'm like, "Well, I'm making an indie CCG. Okay, what is this about?" And he was basically saying that 99% of these indies will fail to because they lack a business head directing the company. You heard what I just said?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it's funny when I was watching this video, I'm like, is he talking to me? Like, I feel like this video is for me, right? Because like my whole pitch for this game, and I know the game this whole long form discussion is discussing about shard bugs, but also discussing about the potential pledgers. Do your due diligence. Look into the game you're going to pledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you don't go too heavy into it. Be
Well,
responsible with it.
if you notice, I'm not going too much in your game itself, the gameplay,
True.
the mechanics. We'll touch on some of the art, and I've got some of the product you sent me, and we'll do that. I know there's a lot of other channels that can cover that stuff.
Hmm.
I'm more like coming from that, you know, like talk to me about how you're gonna make this game succeed,
Hmm.
and like what are the things that you can do to lower the chances of failure. And so we've spent a lot of time on your background because I think that is important for people to hear and that kind of stuff. So that's why we've gone, and for the people watching, that's why we've gone this path, and that's why we're not like strictly talking about like what kind of resources are you using,
Hmm.
and how do you play the game. Like there's gonna be other channels that can cover that stuff.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and it's interesting. I am going to give him a care package for him to review, and it really stemmed from that video. The video was
Mm.
like, look at all these indies coming out. I'm like, hey, you're talking about me, guy. And 99% are going to fail because they don't have a business head. It maybe the creator of the game is an artist, perfectly fine. Maybe the creator of the game it's just someone who likes tinkering with mechanics and gameplay design, which again is totally fine. That's all part of the process of making a game. um, I'm not an artist, okay? I enjoy games. I understand mechanics and I understand strategies. I'm not going to say, hey, I went to a 4 year degree to learn game design theories, right? That's not me. But what I am is someone um, that God has blessed with some resources in this stage of my life with the ability to form the A team. Okay. I put together a development team, 10. I put them against any large IP. Okay. What my team has shown me in the last 6 months is they are hyper intelligent. They know they're each of them are on their own lane. They know what they're doing. They're masters at their own crafts. They've proven that they can deliver when they say, I'm going to do this. And then they show me what they do. And I'm like, man, that's exceeds expectations, right? Um, I definitely have an A team. Um, and I think that's kind of what Rudy was trying to say in that video is for anyone, especially because again, he's speaking to an audience of collectors and potential investors in the collectible side. Um, Folks that are probably spend more than just someone wanting to play the game. Be cautious of all these indies that are going to start up, right? Because they don't necessarily have a business head at the helm. Ted, I'm the businessman at the helm of Shard Bugs. Okay, and what I can also say is, um, not only did we 100% develop Shard Bugs, we have all of the art done, we have the gameplay done, rule books done. We play tested set one. We are a quarter into the artwork for set two.
Hmm.
We have all the cards for set two, all the mechanics fleshed out. We are playtesting set two. We're not even out on Kickstarter. We're playtesting set two. I have thematically meaning we're a game about bugs, but I have the themes right for the first 17 sets all planned out. The reason why I'm looking out that far is because we're a comic book as well. Okay, Shard Bugs. This is issue number one. I believe I gave you one as well.
Yep, and we
Um,
can look at that a little later too. Like, unless
sure.
you don't want me to open the pages and you want people to wait until they get it, I can show the inside as well.
Yeah, you won't be spoiling it because actually
Okay.
set one, we hired a voice actor and he narrated issue number one. We made it into a YouTube video, and it's on our channel. So
Hmm.
set one's already kind of quote unquote spoiled. There's an audio book, if you will, for it.
As you're talking, I'm just going to show it since
Sure.
I don't want to forget. We'll just show
So
it.
so thematically, we four-sided 17 sets, and we did that because we wanted to flesh out a story for the comic with multiple arcs, where we can kind of introduce certain mechanics. We can introduce new cosmic deities, new types of insects and bugs. So we have the foresight years out, um, and we've already printed our product. This is the first edition, then. Okay.
I was going to ask, so why go to Kickstarter?
So why go to Kickstarter? I have three reasons why I want to do Kickstarter. First and foremost, as like you said, a community member in a bunch of different discords, I remember early on saying, "Hey, I want to make a game that's gonna go on Kickstarter, and it's not gonna rug." Now, I'm oversimplifying it, right? Um, and it's making a little bit light of it, but in essence, yeah, like I wanted to create a game that goes to Kickstarter, well prepared, and you know goes to Kickstarter and actually say, hey, here's your product, right? We're not a rug. That's actually reason number one. Reason number two, Kickstarter, there is exposure. We've curated our own community. Our Discord's almost 500 people now, and we have avid players and followers of the game. But Kickstarter is just another launching pad. Um, I don't need Kickstarter for the funds. Okay, hear me out. Um, we already printed the first edition. I can
In
just
its
take you.
entirety?
Yes, and I'll tell you it's not a spoiler. It's the community knows we're an indie, right? So
Mm-hmm.
don't think huge magic numbers. Okay, we printed 2,000 of these booster boxes.
Okay.
Okay,
And
we
is that
printed.
a first edition or a Kickstarter edition?
This is the first edition.
Okay,
So
so will there
there is
ever
a
be
first edition
another?
logo here.
So there's a Kickstarter logo. Oh no, that's a first
No,
edition
first
logo.
edition logo.
Will there ever be another printing of first edition?
No, that's it.
Okay. So 2,000 boxes.
2,000 boxes.
Okay.
Why do we say 2,000 boxes? It was a discussion I had with Jeeps. He comes from again a background of a bunch of indie communities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 2,000 boxes, Ted, to some people is very little.
Mm-hmm.
2,000 boxes in certain indie communities is like a lot, right? We're talking indie space. There's indie games that make 100 boxes, 250 boxes. There's indies that sell 1,000 boxes on the Kickstarter. So
Didn't
when
Metasu do like 2,500? Something like that? Am
I'm
I
not
thinking?
sure. I think
Or was it 25,000? I can't remember.
I don't know what Minasu's numbers were, but I'll give you like real world examples, just
Yeah.
just so like when people say, because some I have actually gotten messages where some people were like, "Hey, 2,000 boxes doesn't seem like a lot," and then I've talked to other creators of games, and they're like, that's pretty brave of you to print 2,000 boxes." And so it's really there's a whole spectrum. But when we decided the quantity, we actually decided it about 7 months ago.
Hmm.
Our Discord community was small. We had no idea how many we could sell. We were just using metrics from other indies in the last couple of years. Um, I know, I know one game that sold like 800 in Kickstarter. Another game sold 1,000. Another game sold 2,000. I've seen games only sell 500. I've seen games sell 5 to 10,000 boxes. So we said, okay, well, we're a small game. Let's do something manageable. And from there, we can do a reprint if we want. Not a reprint of first edition. Excuse me. We can take the bug getting set. So let's see where it has the name. So this is the bug getting set. This is first edition. Okay. We said 2,000 boxes of the first edition. If they sell out, we can offer a non first edition set, and more folks and players can grab
Hmm.
that. Okay.
So you may
So
reprint the set, but under another set symbol, basically, like a second edition or an unlimited or
like
something.
alpha and beta.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So there was the alpha, and then there was beta with magic, with sorcery, right? Because we're both sorcery
Yep.
fans. Um, and so but Ted, I did it, right? So I printed all of this. I've printed the first edition comic book. We completed the second edition comic. We're gonna drop the second edition comic book on our online store next month. We have a edition 3 and 4 that are being
Hmm.
conjointly illustrated right now. Hopefully, get that out here in the summer. I don't need
Will the
Kickstarter.
comics be longer? I just noticed like it's
Yes.
got like a few pages in it. Like, is that
Mhm.
just because it's the first issue, or are you planning on doing just smaller
Right. So the
comics?
first issue was just like a taste into the lore, okay?
Okay.
And we strategically made it 8 pages, which is actually in the comic book industry, 8 pages is like the minimum you usually see. Like the smaller size
Mm-hmm.
comics are 8 pages. Issue number 2 has almost 20 pages.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so yes, we made them a lot bigger.
Okay. All right. Do
Okay.
people know how big the set is for first edition? Like how many cards are in the set?
Yes, so that is also known. There's
Okay.
110 base cards.
Mm-hmm.
There's more than 110 when you take into account, say, secret rares and box topper iterations.
Okay.
There's more than 110, but in the base playable card set 110.
And variations like foil versus not foil kind of thing.
No, actually. So what I did was I actually took a page out of the OG Pokemon book. I started out with 1999 collecting Pokemon,
Hmm.
and when we both think about OG Pokemon, I'm not sure if you collected it like I did.
No,
Um,
I was Magic, and I really didn't. I have a few Pokemon cards because I started watching Rattle, and he
mhm,
got me interested just enough. I have like a
mhm,
small little stack. That's it.
yeah, but the first handful of Pokemon sets were all sub 100 card counts. They
Hmm.
were actually pretty small card counts, and they only really foiled out the rares. So what we did with Shard Bugs is um, every rare is guaranteed to be a foil. So there's like when you open a booster pack, your rares will be foiled out. There won't be a non-foil option.
Oh, okay.
Right. Your cosmic rares, which is a rarity higher, will also be foiled in a different way. And then there's going to be some secret rares that are also going to be a special foil treatment. Um, so talking a little bit more about the collectability, I suppose, since we're kind of a little bit on that topic of foiling and whatnot. Um, the beginning set also has a box topper.
Hmm.
Box topper will have 6 avatar cards that are double sided. So on one side is one avatar, the other side is another avatar. We did that because this box is kind of draftable just by itself.
Hmm.
Like as in Magic, when you draft Magic, you're hoping. Well, most LGSs have it, but your LGS needs to supplement it with all your land cards, right? Um, it and not to get too much into the gameplay because it's not what the segment is about.
You
But
could feel free to
everything
share.
you
Yeah.
need is in here. That box topper though has the 6 avatars, but it also has a special prize card, right? It's a card that you cannot get in your standard booster packs. You can only get it in the box topper slot, and there's variations of it. So there's multiple different cards that it can be. So it really is meant to be a prize, right? And it's really cool. The whole concept was you open up a box or multiple boxes, you get a bunch of friends together, you draft the game. Whoever wins that really cool draft card.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I thought it
And
was a kind of a
and so
fun
the
way.
idea too would be like you draft that box topper to figure out what avatar you're going to play with. Is
No,
that
so basically, um, there are avatars that you will be able to get from packs,
okay?
and then there's avatars from the box toppers. Like if this is literally the very first box open at an LGS for a draft, it should be enough variations of avatars that should be anyone could pick whatever colors they want and
Hmm.
be able to play it. But certainly after the second or third boxes are open and those LGSs retain those tokens, if you will, they're just basically token avatars.
Oh, okay.
You can you'll certainly have whatever you need for drafting.
Gotcha. Okay. Maybe this is a good time. Let me we're on the product. Let me show my top-down view. Let's crack a couple packs you sent me.
Awesome.
Look at a couple cards. So, I did crack a few before the video because I wanted to assess myself, and just get a feel for like what I'm looking at here. So, first thing I'm going to do is just show some people some cards that I already opened. I was able to get so, this is like my first look at your game, right? So, I don't know what this stuff is. Blessing
All
of
right.
Luna, and it's foiled.
Ooh, you got a blessing. That's a
It
good card.
it looks cool. Like you
Cool.
might know this about me because you've been around the channel, but like I love artifact type stuff. And I don't
Hmm.
know if you have the concept of artifacts in your game, but when I see a shard like this, I think artifact object and and I dig the art of it and the way you've got it foiled out. It's kind of like you've selected where to put the foil and where not to put the foil. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, like that's kudos to the team, our artists and our and Scarlett that does our masking for the foiling. Really good at what they do. But it's very cool that you got a blessing in your sample pack. So a fun fact about these sample packs: these sample packs were a limited 1,000 pack run.
Okay.
Um, we
I actually
only
got
chose
two, by the way.
15. What's that?
I got two of these. You're saying like they're pretty rare. Blessing of Luna. I got two Blessings of Luna.
Oh, okay, hot shot there.
I don't know. I don't know how
But
rare. Like how hard was that to happen in 3 packs?
so no, so I'll kind of explain, and you'll understand the pull rates. But
Okay.
it's 1,000 packs, and we only chose 15 cards, so it was only supposed to be a small sampling, and we did that because we didn't really want to spoil the greater set, if you will. There was 15 cards selected, and they were all supposed to be commons and uncommons. And there's 6 cards in a pack. The first 5 are non-foil, and the last one is foil. But you have an equal chance to get any of those cards in foil. I believe there's like a pop 67 of each card in foil
Okay.
throughout all the packs. Now the blessings. What I say about the blessings for that being a pretty cool hit, if you will, foiling hit, is after the sample packs were put into production, the game went into some play testing, and ultimately the 3 blessings, because there's 3 of them, became rares.
Mm.
So they're kind of the only pseudo rares, if you will, of this sample pack, if you will. And a lot of people enjoy obtaining those.
I also noticed too. I mean, this probably the first thing that strikes people. It's the first thing that struck me is the cards look like pages out of a comic book. It's got that comic look and feel. Obviously, that's what you were going for.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about why you went with that aesthetic and knowing that like that's not going to be for everybody? You and I even talked
Mhm.
before the video a little bit. That's like, I can appreciate it. The fact that it looks like it's part of a comic. It's not exactly my personal flavor of ice cream, if you will. But if it's something that people are into, if you guys like comics and you kind of dig that it's on a card like this, maybe it's worth looking into a little bit more. But can you talk
Mhm.
about what that decision was about and why you went the sort of the comic route?
Yeah, part of it was a personal preference in art style. I love comic books myself. Big Marvel fan. Sorry, DC, not so much. But so I love my comics, and um, it was part of like a market research a little bit. We wanted Shard Bugs to really stand out. When you look at Shard Bugs, the cards, and you look at Shard Bugs, the way we're branding everything out, it's really poppy colors, neon colors. We're talking, retro '80s feel look, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. And also we wanted to harken back into the '80s and the era of the comics of that era. I didn't see a lot of comic book style TCGs out there. Certainly not anything bug related. So I said there are so many high fantasy games or waifus. Remember, Ted, we're in this era in the last 4 years where you were either a kind of high fantasy dragon
Mm-hmm.
wizards game or you were a waifu type game. And I said, I want to be in this lane all the way over there that is way different from all that. So I said, okay, retro '80s, poppy colors, neon colors, comic book aesthetics, and bugs.
I do think that like you nailed the comic book aesthetic. It does feel like even the text, right? Like when I look at this text, it looks like it's written in a comic book. The I guess I don't know what to call this. The name box,
Almost a
the
script,
title
yeah.
box at the top. It's not a perfect rectangle, right? Like it's got that comic book feel. I like the real sort of like thin colored border. It looks thinner. I want to say maybe not quite half as thin, but it looks thinner than sort of the average card game border. And there's something about that that it's almost like makes it I don't know, like what's the term when you put that gold film on the side of a card or a piece on a
Exactly.
page? You know what I'm talking about? I
So
can't think of the word of that.
yeah,
Guilt.
so we're on the same wavelength, and we in my Shardbucks community, we call that having a hive mind. Okay. Um, there was a time, and I started seeing this a couple of years ago, where some trading cards actually would put a foil effect on the edge of the cards. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure if you remember seeing anything like that.
I have a couple from a game. And actually, I wish I could remember it, but I can't remember which game it was. But I still have them to this day. They sent them to me. They might have been samples or something. But yeah, I
Okay.
know what you're talking about.
Okay. But there's actually a production flaw about that. When they do that, they actually shave the thickness of the card so that that card is actually not the same size as another card in the
Hmm.
game without that effect. So I said, I want something that gave me that look of a nice edge,
Okay.
especially with the foil effect, but didn't have that production issue.
And while we're on that topic, I'll just tell you I've been cracking some of the sample packs you sent, and I pulled a Blessing of Mars foil
Oh,
and a hold on, it's a little far. I can't read it. Ribbon Leech. Am I saying
nice.
that? Am I saying that properly in
Yep.
foil?
Ribbon Leech and Blessing of Mars.
Okay, yeah. So I pulled those additional foils, and then before the episode today, let's see, I think it was just this one other um, Blessing of Luna as well in foil, and then a few other
Mhm.
dupes that I had. So I was looking through. I might actually have pulled an entire set of 15 between the 5 packs. I'm not sure. I guess I'll have
Okay.
to like check that after the show, but like I'm either really close or I might actually have a full set of 15. There's definitely dupes in there. Obviously, with 5 packs, you're gonna have dupes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. So tell us a little bit more about like these are samples. That I see
Yeah. So those.
SMP at the bottom by a number.
Yeah. Yeah. So those were samples, and the reason why we printed this whole production run was it really had nothing to do with funding. Some indie TCGs, and this is a fine tactic, have created samples and have sold them, and it's a way to kind of generate a little bit of revenue, kind of use that, you pay some art, and that's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was not the case here. The case was we have an American printing company that we've kind of partnered up with to do our promos, and we wanted to see if they can produce kind of full packed packs as well. It was more of a test of, I guess you will, of that production company to see how can they pull off sealed packs. I wanted to give them 1,000 pack count. I wanted to see how long it took to for them to make it. I wanted to judge the consistency, the pull rates, any manufacturing defects. It was really just a test of this printing company.
Mm-hmm.
And since we produce 1,000 packs, what I'm going to do, like throw them away, right? So we offer them to the community, especially the obviously the folks who were there early on. Um, since then, the cards have actually gone through a lot of changes. I'll show you a picture here of a card.
I just
Okay.
noticed that it says 2024 on the pack as well. So I assume well actually you already have your first set printed. So is that going to say copyright 2024 or 2025? The set 1 booster box.
It should say 2025. I'm gonna open up a
Okay.
card and check it,
Okay.
um,
So
but
you
here
don't
we
do you have any cards that are copyright prior to 24
no
for any reason? Okay.
no 24 was the earliest print run, so
Okay.
these sample packs are the first of the first of the first.
And then never again, not like sample 2.0 and that whole thing, or are you going to do more samples of different types of samples?
Um, I don't foresee us doing another sample release, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
This was again a test of a manufacturer, which I'm pleased with the results. I think the folks love the foiling on it. They like the packaging, so I think it was a good result, good outcome. I'm gonna shout them out because
Sure.
I've grown really fond of the owner of the company. I like what he's doing, and I think I should give him 2 minutes of fame. The name of the printing company in America is called Creative Hollow. and the owner, his name is Eldon. And Creative Hollow is a really master of his craft. Like if you look at the cards, not only are the foilings fantastic, if you look at it from a perspective of like how's the centering, right? How are my edges? How are my corner cuts? You really see that they're pretty darn good quality cards. His cards that he produces are really, they're known for consistently hitting 9.5s and 10.0s when sent out to be graded. So Creative Hollow, shout out to you guys. You guys are doing a fantastic job, and hope we can continue working together in the future.
So yeah, I mean, I don't, this is the first time I'm looking at it this closely, but I don't see what direction it was cut. That's the first thing I've noticed is like, the edge is pretty crisp. Um, that's pretty interesting. I don't know if I'm sure maybe if I got a loop out or something, maybe I could tell. I'm looking at kind of like the sheen on the back looks pretty even. So yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, it feels pretty decent. It doesn't feel too thick or too thin of a card. I guess I'd have to grab another card game and like compare it. I don't have one next to me, but
Sure.
Nothing like sticks out when it's in my hand as being sort of like, different or odd in any sort of way. It's just, I pull it out, I look at the art, I look at the card, and I move on. Like I'm not picking it up and like, oh, that's paper thin or something like that. Yeah, no. So, okay, cool. So you're going to keep using that printer for a while?
We're gonna use them. They do have a kind of cap on production volume, so we can't really do large print runs with them. But we definitely will continue to do um, convention promos.
Okay.
So actually, fun fact: this Saturday when we launch the Kickstarter, our dev team will actually be at Collecticon in Fort Lauderdale to showcase the game as well. And we will have a convention promo printed by Creative Hollows there as well. And we plan on doing 6 conventions this year. Each convention will have their own special convention promo card, if you will, that you can pick up if you're there.
So I just wanted to share, I guess, some of my first impressions on the game. I'm going to bring back the top down. So, okay, obviously everybody can see we've definitely hammered home, like, it is a comic book aesthetic for sure. Personally, the type of art that I tend to gravitate to is like this stuff here, like the Black Ranger ants, that like the sort of more detailed kind of stuff. There's something about the wizard, like the cloak on the ribbon leech, and like he's holding something that appears to be magical. So I'm always like the sort of the magical, the dragon, the wizard, like maybe it's the cloak, it's the symbols on the cloak, it's the way it flows, stuff like that I like. Admittedly, the bug theme itself is not my personal cup of tea, but I also think not every game's theme is for everybody as well. And I wanted to ask you, when you pick a theme as niche as bugs, you're going to have people like that who are just like, hey, I want to be into it, but I'm not into bugs.
Yeah, I'm okay with bugs not being everybody's thing.
And hope I don't want you to take offense. I don't think you do.
No,
but it's just not my flavor.
Offense. I take as much offense than my 9-year-old who wants me to play My Little Pony train card game with her, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I might play around with you, but I don't know if it's my thing. So yeah, bugs are not for everybody. That's fine. There's people who are genuinely like arachnophobic and like will not want to even look at this thing, right? When you think about what Shard Bugs is as an IP and as a brand, and you may not know it because I don't think I've expressed it to you just yet. We wanted Shard Bugs to be like a true kind of Marvel-esque type comic book where sure there's action, there's some fantasy, right? Because we're talking about magic involved and whatnot,
Yep.
and action fighting sequences and all that. But like every good Marvel movie out there, there's lightheartedness and there's humor behind it. So we wanted Shard Bugs to be a card game that, sure, it's action packed. You know, you got ants fighting ants, you know, fighting butterflies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you read the comic book, it's not so much issue one. Issue one's okay, but when you get into like issue two and issue three of the series, you're gonna chuckle. You're gonna read about it, be like, "Oh, this is a cool fight scene," and then you're gonna turn the page, and he said what? You know, and it's supposed to be like a little bit comedic. There's something comedic about taking these bugs, and if you think about it, I know we're discussing like the high fantasy theme where
Mm-hmm.
you have dragons and you have angels and you have warriors and elves and dwarves. You actually get all of that in shard bugs, but they're disguised as bugs, and I'll explain a little more.
It is. I do get a piece of comedy that I never looked at it this way before you just said it. If like there's
Mhm.
it just imagining like these are little tiny bugs with like
Mhm.
these like weapons and like they're like fighting each other. But if you were to zoom out like the size of a human or even larger
Yeah,
and picture watching them like fighting in the grass, that would be
exactly.
actually kind of funny. And
Yeah,
I never had that view of it until you mentioned it. And I do have
yeah.
to say really quick, like it is very cohesive. Like you're, even this card I've got in my hand, the glowworm galvanizer,
Hmm.
like, so it's not just shooting a blaster. It's linked to like a glow thing
In his
behind its
abdomen.
back.
Yeah.
And and when I'm looking at like what is it, like the black ranger ants, I mean there's like a
Hmm.
bunch of them. Oh, I'm over here
Yeah.
showing my drop down camera. Let me show the front camera. And it's like, I mean that's what ants would be. It'd be like a bunch of them coming at you. Each card, like if you put them separate, but next to it, like the leech is separate from the ants, but if you put
Hmm.
it next to it, it goes right. Like,
Hmm.
so I can appreciate that the cohesiveness.
The whole theme though is like you for the folks that really like high fantasy, you get that with a little bit of a dose of parody or humor.
Mm-hmm.
So in our set or in our world building, there's dragonflies. Dragonflies are the dragons of our world, right? There's beautiful butterflies. The beautiful butterflies are like the angels that you would see in magic or in sorcery. You have termites, and the way that um, Cuna de Castillo, our art director, actually created an entire art guide for all of our artists for the game
Mm.
to produce that cohesiveness.
Oh, like to
And it
prep
was
them before they create,
That's
to get
correct.
them
So
in
he
the right
actually
mind space.
created a
Okay.
whole illustration guide for all the artists to have some cohesion and to understand that world building. If we assign you a dragonfly, those are the vicious dragons that you would see in a high fantasy game. If we assign you a termite, think, subterranean dwarves, right? Short,
Mm.
stocky, built that way. If we assign you a soul, which is the Star Alliance. If we assign you a soul ant, think think elven, high elves.
Mm.
If we assign you a Luna bug, like you see the Black Ranger ants, they're actually modeled after the whole Luna Alliance is like really techy, but like almost like steampunk type techy. Steampunk. Um, if we assign you a Mars, like a Mars bug,
Mm-hmm.
that's more like the goblins and orcs and primitive warmongering alliance, if you will. So there's actually a whole world building that we're doing and mythology. There's a whole reasoning on how each bug looks the way they look. It has to do with the alliance. It has to do, how do we take this card and make it feel like you're almost playing a magic or a sorcery. Like there's because the bugs when you pick up a card in the type text, it'll say bug, but then it will say slug paladin. It will say termite warrior. So they actually get classifications that way.
Yeah, I
You
see
know,
like the ribbon leech says bug worm cleric.
right?
I
So
guess
it
it's
gives
hard
you a
to
little
see.
bit of that
It,
clericy vibe when you look at it.
that's probably the one of the smallest pieces of text on the, like it's the mechanic text is bigger than that, the title is bigger than that. Is there a reason for that?
The layout has changed. I feel like the size of the text is equated to the importance of the text. So like, your casting cost, the devotion, which is the upper right number, your attack and your defense, obviously they're bigger fonts. They're more important.
Hmm.
The ability text box are also, pretty important as well. Once you realize that you're playing a deck that has a bug slug paladin, and that's, whatever bug, it's almost like a reference thing that you don't really have to look at all the time, as opposed to like the attack. Hey, let me double check that attack from across the table, so to speak. Um, so but we take constructive criticism. We could take it back to the team. Now it's printed, and if it needs to be 1 point bigger, when we do standard print, we could make it 1 point bigger. So
Yeah, I
not a
mean, at
problem.
the end of the day, I'm just one person, one opinion, and I guess I don't know what the right way is to make sure that you get enough input before you make a
Mhm.
change. Don't just make it on my behalf.
Yeah.
It's just my initial observation. I've noticed on some cards there is no text in the mechanic text box.
Hmm.
Um, is that because it's a sample, or is that because that card actually doesn't have an ability there?
Yeah, some cards are, just think of it, your vanilla creatures, right?
Okay.
Your vanilla 1/1 goblin that just doesn't do much more than be a body out there in the field.
It
So
and
there's
then
some of that.
is there any thought to like, and again, I have no idea what the right answer is, to like not have the text box, or to like have it almost like opaque a little bit. The
Yeah.
reason I bring this up, when I see the text box, it looks incomplete when
Hmm.
there's nothing in it, and it's like bright white, like it's expecting to be written in. Yeah, I don't know. Has anyone ever brought that up, or what are your thoughts on that?
Um, it actually has been brought up recently. A couple of people have like mentioned it literally in the last few weeks.
Okay.
We're open minded, right? So one thing about Shard Bugs is, kind of like you're saying, it's not like we're gonna take every single advice or idea that people put out, on our discourse and community and socials, and implement it, because we can't please everyone, but we do listen to the community. There's been a bunch of things that we have done to the game by not thinking we know it all, listening to community. Hey, that's a pretty cool idea. Let's take that. One of the things that we actually are considering for the second print run of the beginning for the standard set is to take the bright white ability box of the bugs, especially not just especially the ones that have nothing in it, but just everything across the board, and making them opaque. When you look at the blessing cards, for example, those
Mm-hmm.
are supports. We made the support cards to be kind of semi opaque. So we're actually thinking of implementing that, not just for the support cards, but across the board for bugs and items and everything else.
So
I
I'm
think you
I'm
get.
looking. You've got non-foil blessings in here,
Mhm.
and they're also opaque.
Yeah, so we did it just for that one type of card, which are called supports, and we actually did it during the during the sample run to see how the printer would react and how it actually would work, and it actually worked well. In the first edition print run, the bugs do have the bright white text box, but we're considering for future print runs to make all the text boxes opaque. I think you can appreciate a little bit more of that bleed through of that art coming through. So.
Yeah, and even from graying it out, opaquing it out, or even taking it out completely, I'm not sure if that
Mhm.
would be an option. You're disabling it. It's not a feature, it's not a function, and then my eye doesn't get drawn to it. I think that's
Sure,
the way I'm kind of almost looking at it. But take it with a grain of salt. Like,
sure. If I'm trying to kind of pitch shard bugs, not necessarily the play style, well, there'll be other forms for that, but as a game to get into during the Kickstarter phase, in the early phases of the game, is, as a business owner, I feel like I've put together the right team, and putting together project, I come from that same mindset that you have, Ted, where there's been a bunch of indies. Some of them start out okay and fizzle away. Some of them get crowdfunded and don't even deliver. So when I put together this whole project, I'm putting it together from I'm looking at the point of view from Lewis, the player and collector. What do I want to see in a game for me to say yes? I'm gonna pledge to back this on Kickstarter. I'm gonna invest my time and resources into learning to even play the game and acquiring the product. Is okay. So if I'm gonna scrutinize another game, I'm gonna ask you, you know, um, first and foremost, and it's important. You got to put it out there. Is your company um, basically resources adequate for
Mm.
longevity, right? Are you guys going to be able to print a set two? Can you deliver a set two? Um, because I'm seeing sometimes I see goals set on Kickstarter, Ted, where it's like, okay, I know now, especially because I've developed my game. I know how much money I've put into my game, art
Hmm.
wise, development team, print runs, tariffs, shipping from across the seas and everything.
Can
I
you
know what it
share?
costs,
Can you share
but
what you've invested, or do you want to keep that private?
I'll keep that private. But
Okay.
a lot,
When you say a lot, are you willing to say even just like figures, six figures, I'm assuming
oh,
not seven figures.
not seven figures, but six figures.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it gives
yeah,
people an idea that when you say a
yeah.
lot, you're not talking about like 8 grand. Like
Yeah.
you've really put
No,
some
not eight
cash
grand,
into it.
not ten
Yeah.
grand. I mean,
Okay.
we're into the six figures,
Okay.
and the reason why I guess that's fine for me to say because I am like I'm one of you guys. I'm from the indie TCG community. I play multiple games. I collect multiple games. I have fun with this. But the reason why I want to tell the folks that are interested in maybe considering Shard Bugs for a new game they want to pick up is yes, I have put six figures of my own money into making this game and putting together the right team to make the right decisions for the game. And we don't need a Kickstarter. We've already produced the product, at least the first print run. Okay. Um, we don't even need a Kickstarter to continue the future of the game. We are already working on developing set two. And to be honest, and I'll just put it out there, and you could believe it if you'd like, and that's perfectly fine. You could not believe it if you will, and that's perfectly fine. But I can continue to develop this game for the foreseeable future. I can make another 7, 8 sets, artwork, develop it, play test it, print it without receiving one penny of income. Okay, that's where Shardbug stands financially. So, and I know that's a concern because actually that's one of the biggest reasons why some indies fail. It's because they don't, unfortunately, have the resources to continue set two, or they think they set the correct goal on their Kickstarter fund amount, but then when rubber meets the road, so to speak, they're like, yeah, I guess I don't have the funds to produce all the artwork, and actually, produce the product and pay the tariffs and get it over here and ship it out to you guys.
So
So
what's your? I mean that's those are significant. That's like a significant moat around the business. You just gave a real extreme scenario, meaning
mhm,
you wouldn't sell a penny's worth, and you could still do that.
mhm,
But we know that you're going to sell something, right?
mhm.
So my question is, do you have an idea in your mind about what is that threshold that you need to see maybe after a set or a few sets to mentally just decide to keep going? Because
Mhm.
even if you could print 8 sets right now out of pocket, should you, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a
Oh, totally get it.
significant investment of your personal, Like if you knew you might never get that back, right? Like I don't know that any good like business mentor would say like, yeah, that's a good idea. And it doesn't, and you're not saying that,
Mhm.
but I'm trying to get a feel for like, okay, so let's say you print the 2,000 boxes, you do the Kickstarter. Let's hypothetically say they all sell, and you kind of now you get into that like normal. You're not in Kickstarter anymore, like that normal like set cadence, which will be interesting to know. I haven't asked you that yet. What's your set cadence going to be? 1 a year, 5 a year,
Mhm.
6 a year, 2 a year? Um, at what point do you assess the sales of each of those sets and say like I've hit my goal of saying I will continue on for the next set?
Mhm.
Or are you willing to fail on that goal a few times? At some point you got to throw the towel in, right?
Mhm.
Like what are those thresholds in your mind? Is it dollar figures? Is it box counts of sales? Is it like fan base, estimated size?
Mhm.
Or are you not thinking about that yet?
So here's what I will say. Um, if we sell all 2,000 boxes,
Mm-hmm.
great. Actually, you know, we it's a little better than a wash. We're great. Um, for me, like you're saying, like I can continue and continue and continue. Um, and what would make me want to continue is um I don't need shard bugs as a means to sustain myself, right? This is a company, right, that I'm putting my full effort behind. And if it goes places, fantastic, amen. Um, but I'm able to reinvest to the last dollar ROI back into the game, right?
Mm.
Um, and for me, what would make me want to continue is seeing people to continue enjoy playing the game, and as long as it's self-sustaining and churning a profit, this doesn't have to make me wealthy or whatnot. It could sell. It could sell 2,000 boxes from here on to the next 10 years per set, and 2,000 boxes will sustain it per set, and I will play it and I will collect it, and my kids will love it, and the community will like it, and that's fine. But realistically, I do have, I treat, I'm going to treat this like I treat any of my other businesses. I will track it with KPIs, right?
Mm.
Real business metrics and KPIs.
And those key
Right.
performance indicators for people that
Sorry,
are
yes, keep
listening that
those
don't know.
indicated. Good job, Ted. Sorry, I get sometimes lost in the lingo.
No, you're good.
Um, and so I wanted to see the 2,000 the 2,000 boxes of the first edition. This is more of me proving to the community and to the potential, players, collectors, and all that. Shardbugs can complete an art set. We can complete a set. We can play test it. We can print it. We can bring it here. Ted, I have the product. When we're done with the Kickstarter, immediately we're gonna ship out.
Mm.
Zero delays, no reasons. Um, but for us to continue move forward, um, what's going to be really telling is the standard edition. So we have been releasing in our Discord community once per day a different tier, for the Kickstarter. Um, During the Kickstarter, we will have the limited first edition set for sale. You can also, if you call it a pre-order, right, you can purchase boxes of the standard edition. Those will be print to demand. So I'm kind of curious to see how much demand the next set gets, right? That's gonna really gauge the interest at this particular point on the Shardbucks game. I would like to see at least 25% more boxes of the standard edition over the Kickstarter amount. I would like to see 25% more boxes of the second set over the standard edition. So I'd like to see a 25% increase in demand set over set. So we will be doing kind of pre orders to gauge interest. Another thing that I've disliked from, games that I try to collect, if you will, is overprinting.
Hmm.
Right. That's a pet peeve for a lot of people, Ted.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta admit it. So we promise not to overprint. I'm just saying it. So
How do you figure that out? Like,
how do I figure that
how do
out?
you gauge how much to print?
So I will tell you that if I knew all the answers, right, uh, I could walk on water, and there's only one person that has been able to do that. But I don't. But I will tell you what we're doing. Okay, during the Kickstarter, you can, if you'd like, you could pledge $1. Right, you don't have to buy a tier. You can pledge $1, and you can purchase the standard edition set. Why am I bringing this up? Because there is a limited supply of the first edition. Let's hypothetically say that the first edition sells out on the Kickstarter. You're like, shoot, all the tiers sold out because there's caps per tier because there's a limited quantity. But you really want to try out the game. Well, you could pledge $1 tier and you can purchase, and it's actually at a discount. We're actually discounting the product per standard. For the you could purchase booster boxes, one, a whole case, whatever you like. You can purchase splat boxes of the center edition. That's one way, and that's a way for us because those are actual numbers, actual
Mm-hmm.
print to demand, requests. Once the Kickstarter is over, we're going to have a 2 week period where we're going to pre-sell, if you will, the standard edition directly through our website, our online store.
Is that going to be to the people that paid the dollar? To it almost sounds
To
like you're
anybody.
saying for the $1, like it's like they're going to reserve the option to buy some standard stuff. Like I'm trying to figure out
For
what.
yeah, so if you play, like, say, if you say, okay, for example, I'll circle back a little bit.
Sure.
This Splat Box, you
Mm-hmm.
can, this is a tier. You can buy just this box alone. It will be $45 during the Kickstarter. Once you purchase it, you can say, you know what? I want to buy a box or two of the standard edition. Those are add-ons. So the standard edition Splat boxes and the standard edition booster boxes will be add-ons on the Kickstarter. You're pre-ordering that, and it should deliver in August. Okay. Now, the reason why you may want to do that is, um, you have faith that the game is going to continue, and you're wanting more product in the future. Also, there is going to be different chases for the collectors in you. There's going to be different altars and toppers and chases in the center edition, from the first edition. So if you're really a completionist, you may want to still consider purchasing some center edition. You also may buy standard edition at Kickstarter if we do sell out. Again, we have certain tiers. We have certain limited supply. There's 1,000 splat boxes. There's 2,000 booster boxes. Once those are gone, are gone. But let's say the Kickstarter continues and you want to purchase it, you can still pledge a $1 pledge and purchase the booster boxes or splat boxes for the standard edition as add-ons. Okay. Now, the reason you want to do that during the Kickstarter is I'm offering it at a discounted price.
Mm.
Now, after the Kickstarter is over, all this is discussing how do I gauge the print run of Standard
Mm-hmm.
Edition, the whatever was ordered through the Kickstarter, and then after the Kickstarter closes, probably relatively soon after the Kickstarter closes, I'm going to open pre-orders for the Standard Edition at full MSRP on our website for 2 weeks. Once the that pre-order window is closed, I'm gonna just tally. Kickstarter wanted this many, pre-orders wanted this many. I'm gonna take that number and then I'm gonna add a small percentage to it. I'm thinking probably about 10 to 15% more. The reason I'm doing that is any loss or damaged product that happens. But also that little extra, I'm going to introduce them into other LGSs to grow the LGS community. And after that, Ted, I'm done printing the beginning. My eyes and my sight is on the next set.
Mm.
Let's move on to the next set. To me, that's how you don't overprint.
So, and I'll be honest, I have no clue. I've never tried to make a game. I can't assess your formula. So
Right.
I'm just, for the people watching, it's up to you guys to sort of assess and judge
You got yes.
Lewis's answer.
If anything, Ted, that formula of taking the pre-orders on Kickstarter, taking the pre-orders that we sell directly online, adding a small 10 to 15% on it for loss, damage, and or continuing to grow LG, by supplying some LGSs with some product. Um, we're only printing 10 to 15% more than what were the physically pre-sold unit count is. That's not, to me, that in my eyes, that's not an overprint,
So
because
people really
especially
have to know then, like you need to do the pre-order at that
right.
point, because
Hmm.
like don't wait like Magic the Gathering or something where they're just going to print whatever they're going to print 100,000 boxes or something,
Hmm.
because you just know it's going to be on the market. If you're doing that model, at least to start, it sounds like what you're saying is like if you want the product, you need to pre-order the product,
If
because
you want the product, you should
your
apply for
chances of
Kickstarter,
getting
please,
it after are going to
or
be
look
low.
or grab it during the pre-order phase. We'll make sure to announce it. Everyone's going to be clear that, hey, if you want this next set, make sure you order it now. Yes, there'll be a little extra printed. Yes, you'll be able to find it at the LGS, but Lewis is not going to print a third wave or a fourth wave or a fifth wave. We're we printed our beginning set. We want to move on to the next set, and the
There,
reason is because you haven't asked it, but you were asking earlier about it. We wanted to print a new set every fifth month.
that yeah. I was curious what the set cycle is every
Mm-hmm.
fifth month. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna throw off, like it's not gonna, because you didn't go with sixth month. It's not gonna
Mm-hmm.
be like, December and June every time. Like it's
Yeah,
gonna stagger, the months are all gonna get a turn.
they are gonna get turned, but right now we're gonna do every fifth month for like the foreseeable future.
Okay, so it could
Meaning
change.
it could be for just 2 or 3 years, and then we might do it, you
Okay,
know, a more consistent way. We're
so
doing it is because I know my team. I know they can rock it out in that much time. It's the time they need. I'm gonna give them the time they need and deserve. We're not gonna rush things.
well, and
We're
what's
not
your
gonna
set size gonna
overpromise.
be? Like generally, are you gonna have like sort of a target range for
What do you
future
mean?
sets? Like how many like if you were trying to print like 500 card sets, 5 months isn't
Mhm.
enough time. If you're printing 50 card sets, it's plenty of time. I'm assuming your first set you said was something like 110 or something.
Yeah.
So I'm
Our
assuming, like,
first,
are you kind of shooting for that like 100 range every time? Is it going to be different every time, or
yeah. So we've already agreed that future sets will be bigger. So our second set right now, our current card count, because it could change a little bit during
mm-hmm.
playtesting, it's 156 cards
Okay.
now. And we can still rock it out in 5 months. Now, Shard Bugs, as you'll see, has three colors, three alliances. You have purple, yellow, red, Mars, Sol, and Luna. It's not a spoiler. It's already been discussed. We are going to add more alliances, aka more colors. I have not said how many more. We felt that for a small introductory set with just three colors, the 110 was fine. As more colors get introduced, you naturally have to make set sizes larger in order to really feel like a more rounded set, and that the colors are not too spread thin, if you will, in new cards. So yeah, we do anticipate in the future going from 150 maybe to 200, and probably stay in the low to mid 200 range for future sets. But as we also scale up the company, we'll scale up employees, and we'll scale up in terms of reaching out to other artists. There's a plethora of artists who actually reach out to us on a weekly basis. So we have a lot of people that we could draw from, and but they have to meet the certain aesthetics, if you will, of the
Mm-hmm.
game. But yeah, we would I would ideally like to see a consistent three sets a year. And it may take us 2 3 years to get there. So that's why right now we're starting out every 5th month, but maybe by set 6 or 7, we're bringing it into a nice round 3 sets
Yeah,
per year.
you'd really have to have your pipeline efficient and smooth and ready
Hmm.
to go, and also like in the future too, right? So like
Hmm.
I don't even know how that looks, but I'm just the business mind of me is thinking like if you have 3 sets you want to deliver in a year, you have all 3 pipelines going at the same time. It's just that pipeline 1 is farther along because it's got to
Hmm.
deliver first. Pipeline 2 is a little behind, and pipeline 3 is even further behind. But they're all kind of like going at the same time, but they're just at
Hmm.
different states. So that because in my mind, I just feel like it'd be really difficult if the whole team is working on set A for the year, and then set A is delivered, and then the whole team just starts set B.
Hmm.
Because I feel like you just can't do it in 4 or 5 months, but
Hmm.
you could make it look like you're doing it in 4 or 5 months if you got a head start, because a couple people peel off set A and they start working on set B, 2 or 3 months before set A is even done. So now you've actually got somebody on set B for more than 4 or 5 months, right?
Hmm.
Like I'm just trying to picture
Well,
all
that
that work happening at one time.
so the that comes back to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Putting together the dev team, putting together SOPs, right? Putting together. This is why we have a art guide by Kuno de Castillo. Hey, we need to bring on 3 new artists, guys. I need you to study this art guide,
Mm-hmm.
get familiarized with the alliances, how each bug looks like in those different alliances. Because an ant bug in Soul does not look the same like an ant bug in Luna, which doesn't look the same like an ant bug in Mars. So we've standardized art. We've standardized the way we compile our files to deliver to the printer, which a lot of creators like they could create the art and they could put together the cards on how they look, but then getting into production, being able to speak literally a different language,
So the
and for them to
SOPs are standard operating procedures, is what you mean. I
that's
gotcha.
correct.
Streamlining
So
the
so
whole
we've
thing.
standardized everything from the art, the composition of the files,
Mm.
how we deal with our print partners, the pipeline of the artists when they get their prompts and they bring back a sketch. It goes to Nate or the one who kind of develops the mechanics. Does the art match the flavor of what the card mechanic is? Gives feedback to the artist. Tweaks happen. So every process in the game has a standard operating procedure, and like you said, we actually are starting with a head start. Like literally, we're going into Kickstarter with a product printed. The first set's done,
Hmm.
and there's really just some minor tweaks from first edition to standard, like some different chases and all that. But like at the end of April, once we have all the pre-orders figured out, we hit print. Like literally, just click a button, and it goes into production for the standard set.
Yeah, you almost have
And
to
all of
keep
this is
ahead
happening.
from the
Yeah, we're
get
ahead.
go. If you
We're
can
already
keep ahead,
working on
then
set two.
yeah. So this takes me back to something else you said. We were talking about the 2,000 boxes to start. You'd like to grow it by whatever percentage that makes sense based on
Mhm.
your formula. Also, which I'm assuming could change. But where I'm going with it is like you just described a lot of work
Mhm.
by a lot of people, and I'm just trying to do some rough math here as we're talking. But like
Sure.
2,000 boxes, I don't know what you make on 2,000 boxes, but if we're all just talking round numbers, I can easily multiply 50 by 2,000 and said like if you netted or sorry, if you profited $50 by 2,000, it's $100,000. That's not
Mhm.
enough money to pay a team,
Mhm.
right? Like they burn through that quick, and then you still got to do the print run and all that. Now I know you already paid for it out of pocket, but like at some point you want the company to be afloat.
Mhm.
um so there's at some point you have to print enough boxes to cover
Mhm.
all that cost of your payroll
Mhm.
plus the printing, and
Yeah.
whatever other expenses. So
Yeah.
I
Our
guess I'm
our
trying to figure out what that looks like. Like 2,000, because you had said before too, like if you could do 2,000 to just like self-sustain, but it's passionate thing for you and it's fun for you, like you would keep rolling like at a bare minimum.
Mhm.
Almost like what I heard there was like, even if the game just had a cult following and it was like a
Mhm.
solid cult following, and you never grew it to like this huge Pokemon level thing or something, you'd be okay with
Mhm.
that. But at some point, there's got to be enough boxes sold to
Yep.
cut to pay for these pipelines of work that you're setting up with the people.
Mhm.
And then one other thought to go with this, even though I have no idea how to actually gauge what the right print run is, I did have a couple thoughts after we got onto another topic. But there's the concept that some people could be buying boxes, even pre-ordering boxes, that don't intend to be the people to keep and open those boxes, right? We know there's going to be like some flipping going on,
Sure.
and you're going to have where like that could inflate your numbers. Now, granted, if they actually do flip it and someone buys it, then I guess it's not really inflated because it does end up in a player hand eventually. But that's something that has to be figured out. But then you also have this other concept of you need to have enough boxes, enough extra boxes to grow the game, right? Because like if new people start to like figuring out the game exists, they look at the cards and they dig the comic book style and they dig the bug thematics and everything, and they want to get involved, but then they can't find any boxes because you're going with your formula plus 10 or 15%, like that might not be enough to actually grow the game. So it really is a conundrum as I
Mhm.
as I think about like how you deal with all that. And again, I'm not saying you have to have it all
Mhm.
figured out right now, but just throwing
Yeah.
in those extra variables, what are your thoughts?
So all that is really good. They're really good questions. Now I feel like we're really getting into the meat and potatoes here. So okay, so the beginning set. I have faith that as early as this first set, the beginning, I think Shard Bugs will turn a profit. Sure, I put in it six figures,
Hmm.
right? But
You
I
mean
have
from the
faith.
from the Kickstarter turn a profit?
Yeah, I think right from the Kickstarter we could turn a profit. That's not a
What
problem.
what are the Kickstarter goals really quick? Like what? Not the goals. Like what's the overall
So
dollar figure target?
the overall goal is just 25 grand.
Oh, okay. So you're
And
you're you're planning to surpass that.
yeah,
Like you
we
you're
should
setting
surpass.
you're just setting an easy goal in,
Yeah.
in your
The reason
perspective.
why we're setting a really an easy goal is because unlike, and again, and I don't mean to upset other game creators. I have befriended many game creators, okay? And some of them are able to bootstrap it a lot less than I am. I decided from the beginning I am not bootstrapping my game. I decided from the beginning
Mm,
to create a development team to attract, top tier artists to print fantastic promos, to print, I've already purchased, we have inbound, we have shirts coming in, hats coming in, binders, deck boxes, all of this even without crowdfunding. So I was like, we're not bootstrapping this. Like I'm committed. Like this is gonna be a thing. And at no expense spared, right? Um and and the reason is because I have full faith. Like I'm playing the game. I like the game is super fun. It's enjoyable to play. We are building in collectability because that's part of it being a trading card game, right? So I feel like we're making the right decisions. We're consigning product to LGSs. We're giving 10 of them $1,000 prize pool for organized play. We're giving them organized play boxes. I feel like we are setting up the company in a way where Ted has to succeed. I'm doing everything that I wished a lot of other card games would do, which is give the players a fun game, but also make it collectible, but also give LGS's support and organize play kits and tell them what to do with that. And also like I want to see indie creators like make their own tournaments, make their own games. Um And we've already reserved the location, paid for, ready to go for a November 8th 10K tournament of Shard Bugs. It can seat 500 players, right? Let's fill it up. I want to see that thing full.
Have you done any
Um,
market analysis to figure out like w- how big your potential market, your sliver of the market would be? Just kind of considering the core components of the game, right? Like they have to be into the comic book style. They have to be
mhm,
they have to dig the bug thematics. They have to
mhm,
uh, I guess enjoy the gameplay mechanics, which I don't know anything about because these are the first cards I've ever seen,
mhm,
other than maybe like 2 images online. So like once you those are all filters, right? Those are like
right.
criteria. Once you apply all those filters, have you done anything to figure out like how big is that actual market, so that because let's just say you nail all the business aspect perfect, right? But the product you make is so vertically thin that there's just not that big enough of a market. Or
Mhm.
have you done enough research into this to actually say, there's some indicators that actually this is a game a lot of people would enjoy, and I think the market is huge. Or are
Mhm.
you just doing that Hail Mary, like no market research, but we're going to see what happens, and we're going to let the Kickstarter tell us, and we're going to let the pre-orders tell us? Like,
Mhm.
where are you at on that spectrum of market analysis?
Yeah. So I won't say that we knocked it out of the park on the market research, but I will say we've done market research. So
Okay.
we're somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. In talking to some LGSs, um, feedback is a lot of the Lorcana players are really eyeing the game.
Okay.
The one that's here in my hometown, he was talking to some of the Lorcana players, and they're like, wait. They played it. They're like, it feels familiar, right? And again, it's been compared to it literally for the sole reason that the win con of our game is not like a lot of beat 'em up games. Magic, you have 20 health,
Mm-hmm.
you deplete your opponent to zero. That's how you win the game, right? Shard bugs, you're actually starting at zero score and you're needing to build up to 20, which
Hmm.
is also Lorcana's win con. You're
Okay.
starting that.
What is it considered? What are you building up? Is it like energy? Is it like your
It's
level?
no, it's devotion. So
Devotion.
the
Okay.
the I'll give you a 2 minute lore and I'll explain the whole game.
Okay.
So there's three cosmic deities. They're in a struggle, a rivalry, right? And it's kind of like it's a little bit of a friendly rivalry, and it's more like, hey, I bet I can get more worshippers than you can, right? That's the
Mm.
rivalry. That's the struggle between them.
Okay.
And so when they happen to come across Earth, this is where we get a little bit funny and lighthearted about it. They look at all the inhabitants of Earth, and they're like, humans. Well, they already worship their own peoples, right? So I guess we can't sway them over. You're supposed to chuckle about that. And then they're like, well, there's vast, there's a lot more insects than humans or pigs or elephants or anything else. Insects outnumber every other class of organism here by a lot, except bacterium and mycelium. So they're like, well, let's take these insects, these bugs, and make them intelligent and have them worship us. So the three deities throw magical shards onto the earth. The bugs come in contact with these shards and they become intelligent. They kind of evolve. Some of them even increase into size of like about action figure size. And if a bug touched a Mars shard, it would have the infinity. It would align itself with Mars. Same thing with Luna. Same thing with Sol. Some bugs actually touched the shard and didn't have any affinity. They're neutral, if you will. They're unaligned. And the whole struggle between the three of them is just like anything. When you have more than one religion, what happens, Ted? There's war. We know that from human history, right? So these three alliances, they're worshiping different deities are just at war with each other. They're trying to outcompete the other alliance, and they're also trying to sway the neutral bugs to join their cause. Um, So how do you win the game? Is each let me grab a card and I'll
Yeah, yeah, go
explain
ahead.
it. So here we have Soul's Acolyte. It has a 1 devotion and it's a soul bug. This is a Mars bug. Okay. Sea Tree Seer. It has I'm not focusing that great, but it has 2 devotion. So when it's played onto the field, you can choose to either use its ability if it has an ability to attack with it, or just exhaust it so it doesn't attack that turn, but it gains whatever devotion it has. So when you
Mm.
exhaust it, you're devoting, you're worshiping, you're praying, whatever to your deity that turn, and you can do nothing else. So you're trying to go from 0 to 20. You can also attack your opponent's devotion to kind of lower their opponent's faith, if you will. So that's the whole flavor of how to win. You're starting at 0. You put your bugs out. They're trying to devote, worship their deity to go from 0 up to 20 points to win.
Now, is it just me or do I see Fly by Ranger with 0 devotion, and then Cloth
Yes.
Moth has 1? So some cards could have 0.
So basically, your unaligned bugs, the bugs that are not worshiping a specific deity, are 0.
Ah, okay.
But they have use anyways. Basically, we call the unaligned bugs mercenaries, right? So, in your deck, if you have Mars as your avatar, you can have Mars cards like Sea Tree Seer, or any other bug that has the Mars icon on it
I
on
I
its
think
casting cost.
I've got my camera down view. I'm holding up a couple right now, so I've got like the red fighter ants,
Yep,
and
that's also a
I'm
Mars card.
noticing now by the 1 in the upper
Yep,
corner, they've got that same logo that the Blessing of Mars card
yep.
is showing. Okay.
So as a fellow Magic player, on the upper left, that's your casting cost. So
Ah,
so basically, if it has like a
wait,
Mars
the
symbol,
icon or the number?
both. So in Magic, you can have a force 1 generic, but it costs 3 mana.
Mm-hmm.
So in Shard Bugs, you can have a meteor 1 generic. It still costs 3 dust, but it's 2 of them must be Mars, and 1 of them could be paid by a
Ah,
generic or by a Mars.
okay. The reason I asked is because like, well, for one, the Blessing of Mars has 3 symbols with no number, but that
Right.
also might be a different because it's a different kind of card. And then the Play by Ranger has a number with no symbols, but that's because it doesn't have devotion. So I imagine you could use any resource then to cast it.
That's correct. So you can
Okay,
put Flyby Ranger in any deck, if you will.
got it. Okay, all right. So all right. So taking us back to where the heck were we right before we went into
We're
that?
talking about, okay. So so comparing the game. Okay, we were talking about market research, right?
Oh yeah,
So what I
market
was saying
research.
is, yeah, we've been compared to Lorcana, literally just for no other fact that our win con looks similar. Lorcana, you start at 0, you
Mm.
go to 20, you win. Shard Bugs, you start at 0, you go to 20, you win. So that's kind of really about it that we have. Like, we're not Disney IP, right?
Hmm.
So that's not the same. We do have instant speed cards that Lorcana is lacking, so you can actually interact on your opponent's turn more, which I suppose why the Lorcana folks at this LGS that I got feedback from said, "Hey, this game plays similarly, right? It has the same quote unquote win con idea, but there's more to it, right? I'm seeing interactions that I can do on my opponent's turn that I can't do during Lorcana. So it seems to be a slightly more advanced, let's say, enjoyable, more strategic version of the Lorcana game for that reason. Although there's other nuances in the resources that are different, there's a bunch of different differences between us and that one particular game.
Yeah, you're talking foreign to me because I don't know anything about Lorcana, but
Sure.
maybe for the people listening that do,
Yeah.
they're catching on.
So the feedback from this LGS owner was like, "Hey, our Lorcana crowd really is digging your game. Our One Piece crowd is also really digging your game. So it seems like we can attract some Arcana players. We can attract some Bandai players,
Has
possibly.
that LGS actually been like sort of market testing your product by
Yes.
showing it to their customers?
hmm We gave them loaner decks, and they've
Okay,
been.
so customers aren't buying it, they're not taking it home, but if they came through the door, they could play it and they hand the deck back to the
That's
shop.
correct.
Okay.
So, so yeah, so we're doing that, and we're intending to do that in a bunch of more stores just to get, because there's the Magic players and there's the Sorcery
Yeah.
players and the Locanas so there are clicks or different, not that there's not crossovers because I play Magic, I
Sure.
play Sorcery,
Yeah.
right? So you can't play more than one game, but there's usually like a crowd for each kind of game. So yeah, so I mean, we've done some market research. We need to do more of it. We feel that we're not here to dethrone Pokemon or Magic. It's not gonna happen. That's fine. I'm totally fine with that. I would like a game that eventually grows to be a very viable, self-sustaining, profitable company that is a trading card game, and it has enough people to continue a sustained long venture in this industry.
Is your goal to
Um,
sort of set up that automated sort of company like you've set up in the past? Maybe automated isn't the right word, but autopilot, I think, where like you can engage in as much as you want to, but
mhm,
you've set up kind of like an autopilot business like your others, to where if
mhm,
you want to step back and step in, it's kind of like you do it based on what you want to do. Is
mhm,
that kind of your goal, or do you feel like you're always going to be deep in it and
mhm.
autopilot really isn't, that's not one of your targets?
So to answer that question, it's almost both, right? So here's what I mean. For autopilot mode simply means that Shard Bugs has its act together, that it's creating new content and new sets in a planned, systematic way to be able to deliver new sets in a timely manner, right? And that's why it needs to kind of have a certain rhythm and flow and productivity to it. Okay, so yes, Shardbugs needs to quote unquote run on autopilot, right?
Mm.
And why? Because that's what good companies do.
Like steady state.
Yes,
You need to
yeah,
hit steady state. Okay.
right. Now that doesn't mean that I'm gonna be like, cool, the company's on autopilot. See you next week. No, um, I love shard bugs. Hell, Ted, I love shard bugs and TCGs more than I like reading blueprints, to be honest, right? I've always been a builder and a contractor, and I enjoy that. But I want shard bugs to run smoothly, methodically, in a standardized way, with longevity in mind. But you're not gonna not see me. I will be there. Not only will I be there, I plan to do monthly state of the game addresses. Like, I think we
Mm.
were talking a little bit about that before we
Mm-hmm.
started the interview. But today's Saturday. We're kind of creeping into the late hours of Saturday. But here Sunday the 23rd, I'm gonna go on camera and stream, answer questions the folks might have that are chatting, tell them where we're at and the production of the next set, talk about the Kickstarter coming up. I would love to do that on a monthly basis. I think that's perfect. That's healthy. I think communities need to hear from the creator, from the dev team. It's healthy to be like, this is what we're doing. We're not just hanging out in the background, not thinking of things. Here's maybe I'll spoil an art. Once in a while, maybe I'll talk about, hey, we're 50% done on the art of the next set. Hey,
did did you say you're going to do that live, or just pre-record and then throw the video up, or could be either?
it could be either. Lately, I've been doing it live. Tomorrow,
Okay.
I'll also do it live. I could have a month where timing constraints are a little tight, and I just we might do a pre-recorded thing. But you will see me on a monthly basis on a YouTube video, giving in, a statement on how things are going. Maybe I'll talk about a new event that's coming up. Maybe I'll talk about a new set that's coming up. Maybe we'll talk about new artists that we onboarded. But I want people to know that Shard Bugs is my focus. I'm putting my all into it, not just resources, right? Not I have resources on standby. Let's put it into it. Let's see if something happens. No, like I'm putting my love into this game. I give feedback right along with Nate and Kundu on to the artist. Hey, I want to see it look like this. I give feedback to Nate when he's coming up with new mechanics. Hey, I want this set that has a certain flavor in the lore to have mechanics that coincide with that, right? So like I'm going to be heavily involved, you know um with the development team. I'm working, and they will tell you I work right alongside them.
The expectation for me, if I were a fan of the game, would be, hey, at least the first couple years or something, maybe first few years, but I don't think you would even have to do that, like forever along the game. But
Hmm.
that's just me. But yeah, I mean, for early stages, it's like incubating the game.
Yeah, I don't know what the 5 year from now Lewis um will be doing. I'm hoping it'll be Sharbucks related because uh it's I guess I'm biased, but I'm biased because I've seen on this side what folks have not seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen the full set. I've seen the way it can play. I've seen the future that we have. I've seen the way that the dev team works like a well-oiled machine. Um, and I see the artists and their potential and the stuff they have cooking. Like they're they're getting better and better. Set two stuff is looking crazy. Um, so I see the potential of what this game could do. I can see, organized play that we do. I can see us, continuing to go to conventions, continuing to put on, a pro tour style, competitive play, which is what I want. I see the potential of what we can do, and it makes me excited. And that's what I'm hoping the 5 year from now, Lewis is still doing shard bugs. Will I be doing a once a month video still? I don't know. I mean, it's not that big of a request to spend an hour in front of a camera once a month and just talk to people. And I like talking. I'm a social butterfly, so
Mm-hmm.
like it'd be cool for me to do anyways.
So yeah, and you can probably tell I am as well, which is why we're a few hours in at this point. um, I do want to loop back to the 2,000 boxes and what it takes to sustain a
Yeah.
company. What do you think is actually the number of boxes that like you've listed off a lot of people. Like I haven't written it down and kept track of it, but like it's quite a team that
Hmm.
you've built. Are they getting paid in sweat equity right now? Are they getting paid in cash and in free product and a
Hmm.
combination? Because the Kickstarter, the 2,000 boxes, that doesn't feel like that covers like full time salaries or anything like
Hmm.
that. So where does this thing need to go to like
Sure.
have them be paid in the way that you want them to be paid and all of that?
Hmm. Yeah. So first of all, they're not doing sweat equity. I would never ever have anyone, and this is a big red flag. Ted. This happens in the indie space. I detest it. I've heard horror stories of people, by game creators. Oh, help me do this, and when the game launches, I'll pay you this or whatnot, or I'll give you boxes. That's not my jam, Ted. Like I own enough businesses. I have enough employees. When I hire an employee in any one of my businesses, I feel responsible for that person because that person is needing this employment that I'm giving them to feed themselves, sometimes their spouses, sometimes their kids. So when I employ someone, like to me that's sacred. Like I take employment very seriously. I don't employ anyone without paying them. So they're employed and they're being paid. It's not sweat equity, it's not promises of boxes. Yes, my dev team is gonna get some boxes, right? Our
Oh,
first,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, our first edition says only 2,000 boxes, so I can't promise them 10 cases. But they're gonna get a few boxes, all of them, because why not? That they're part of the team, they worked hard for it and all that. So it's kind of to be expected. But no, they get employed now. Different members are working at different capacities. Myself, I have my other companies. All the devs um, have to some degree another job. I will say I don't want to point one particular person out or two, but yeah, I have members that are full time. I have members that are part time. Um, and to better answer the question, um, when I answer this question, it's also going to lead into a tactic. It's a tactic that we're going to take that I feel is advantageous for us, is advantageous for the LGSs and the end users. But it's a model that I hear nobody else is wanting to follow. Hear me out. Distro or no distro, right? So I feel like so many people, so many creators get, told, yeah, as soon as you launch, you got to go to a distro. No, not really. And if you say that I'm wrong, that's fine. Shard Bugs, Ted, if you haven't like realized it for us talking the last few hours, we're doing things our own way, right? We're developing a game 100% self-funded before Kickstarter. We're pre-printing it before Kickstarter. Um, we set it up as a company focused entity first. We listen to our community, and no, I don't care. Like I'm not doing distro until it makes sense to go distro. Here's what I mean. Uh, Distro, there's pros and cons to it. Um, One of the cons is that distro will push a product to an LGS, whether we as a company feel like we're able to truly service and support that LGS or not. Here's what I mean. What if the beginning set releases and it went distro? And I don't know, some LGS in the woodlands of Nebraska like bought it, right? And shout out to my Nebraska people, play Shard Bugs. All right. But I'm not gonna promise to be able to get up to Nebraska for I don't know a year or two, right? And that's part of me. Like I'm committed to going to every single LGS. I don't care, Ted. Call me crazy. Call me crazy. Shard Bugs is not doing things like everybody else, right? I'm committed to going to every single LGS that has committed to partnering up with us and doing a learn to play and meeting the players and signing cards if they like and throwing
Just
a
an
pizza
idea.
party.
If you do make good on that, you should probably have someone bring a camera and film it. Like that could be some interesting content. You going into an LGS. I'm just from a content creator standpoint. I'm
Mhm.
picturing, you're shaking the hand of the owner and they're actually meeting the game creator of the game that gets put on their shelves. I don't know what the actual episode, the content looks like, but it
Mhm.
just I'm as you're describing it, I'm like, oh, that'd be interesting to see. Maybe
Mhm.
not a thousand times, right? But
Right.
like that could be interesting. So anyway, continue on. But just an idea popped in there.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I'm committed to the LGSs. Ted, like I walked into my first LGS experience. I was like, I don't know, 10 years old. Pokemon, wanting to get my little book stamped with all the gym badges, right? For all of us OG Pokemon players. So like my childhood was the LGS. The LGS is where you went, you hung out with friends, you ate snacks, you traded cards, you bought product, and it's just there's a feeling of kinship amongst us, trading card players with the LGSs. Um, and I want to double, triple, quadruple down my efforts with the LGSs. So this is why we are taking a Florida first approach. Shout out to my people in Kansas. Buy the game. We'll get there. Um, but we're doing it so that we can make sure we hit all the LGS as we promised we would visit. We're hosting the events we promised we're hosting, and then from there, as the game expands and we're able to bring more judges and more developers and able to expand to other places, we will. And we're promising to expand to other places as early as set two. Like my set two will have a Texas California trip. Okay. Um, so that's
So
in the
then,
works.
is it by set three that you might see it countrywide, or that's going to be more of the Northeast, and then set four is countrywide?
Hourglass, I don't know. I mean, I can try to see how far out as I can look, but
Okay.
I'm committed to to responsibly growing this game. Responsibly growing this
Is
game.
there any, so you're not going traditional distribution to start? Is there
Right.
going to be then still opportunity on just direct purchase on your website for anybody who just goes to the website, as long as there's product in stock, like even if they're
Yeah.
outside of those few states that you're going to
So
target to begin?
if you're outside of Florida and you hear us talking about Texas, California next, if
Mm-hmm.
you're outside of those states, know that you're still in my bullet, my eyesight, right, to go there. There is an LGS tier. Um, I know from being part of other indie TCG games, there's people that really champion the cause, if you will,
Mm.
right? There's people that say, hey, I really want to play this game in my community. And if you join up with us during a Kickstarter, you will be prioritized. Here's what I mean. Again, we're doing the Florida tour. We're gonna hit the other states. If you're a store and you are in Kansas and you see this Kickstarter and you pledge, I know who you are. I will see your address. And as soon as I'm done with my Florida tour, I'm gonna take a trip to Kansas then. So yeah, so anyone who's an LGS brick and mortar, you back to Kickstarter, I will visit your store. I don't care if you're now. I'm gonna prioritize America, right? Like if you're in France, I gotta brush up on my French first, and we'll eventually get there. But if you're an
Also,
American LGS
travel
store,
costs are going through my head. Like plane tickets stateside are one thing. Uh, Crossing the ocean gets more expensive as well. And I know you got the funds. I'm just picturing, where
mm,
this line of questioning came from was that box count, right?
mm,
Like, what is that
sure,
threshold box count where
it's
everything
it's
starts to make
it's
sense?
it's less than you think,
Is it
and
like
like if
10,000? Like, I don't really know
no,
because
it's less than that. If we sell 2,000 first edition booster boxes, and I sell another 500 to 1,000 standard edition, we're in the green. It's not that much. My team, I pay my guys and gals, um, but we run a pretty tight, efficient company. Okay, and what I'll say is literally that's why we're also doing a direct to LGS model.
mm,
Um, we're not going to distro route because distro just eats too much of the margins.
mm,
Now, fast forward 5 years, and there is a demand for 100,000 boxes. Sure, distro will definitely be involved, or a couple of distros involved. But if we're literally sub 15 20,000 boxes, we'll go straight to LGSs, and
who would
anything in
be
the
fulfilling at that point? Like, do printers offer big shipments out to like different customers that you have, or would you have to figure the logistics of receiving all of those? Let's just say it was 10,000. That's a lot to receive, right? Like yourself.
so
Would you still just attempt to receive it and process it with your team?
so like I said, Shard Bugs is doing things a little bit differently. And this crazy guy, I'm in. I will make this game succeed, Ted. I have an office and warehouse for Shard Bugs. If I can hold I can hold 25 30,000 boxes if I need to and distribute it myself. I will have a warehouse manager and shipping logistics all figured out. We can definitely go to LGS model ourselves. That's already been figured out. It's not something like, oh, I'm thinking maybe if we need to do 15,000 boxes, I guess I'll have to rent a warehouse. No, I have a location. I have a warehouse manager basically lined up. He's working for my construction company. If things kind of kick off and does well, he gets transferred.
I was gonna say, I'm imagining that there is some benefits and some synergies with the fact that you've got other businesses can
Mm-hmm.
help. Every business can help support every business in one way, shape, or
Sure.
form potentially.
Yep.
That's interesting as well. I mean, it almost sounds like even the funding of shards. Yes, the funding of it is coming out of your pocket, but really what's happening is surplus from other businesses are funding this business.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how you choose to spend your money.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna say something that's gonna upset my wife. And that's fine. I'll make it up to her. Hell, Ted, I've probably spent almost 100 grand in the last 4 years in buying collectibles, other people's games, right? So I have my own surplus of. I mean, I what I mean is, I have the surplus. Praise to God. I love you, Jesus Christ, who has blessed me for me to be able to say that sometimes I just spend money stupidly, and that's just me, right? But now what I'm doing is instead of spending money stupidly in my life, I'm focusing my resources and my attention on this game, 100% effort to make it succeed. If the you know the I figured early on I don't want to do the distro route, so I figured early on I better get an office and a warehouse. I got it. I figured early on that we're gonna double, triple down our efforts with LGSs. We've produced in quantity, in volume, display cases and pop up displays with shelvings and floor characters that draw attention to when you walk in and you're like, what is that thing over there? I want to look at that game. Um, so like I'm putting, you know, I'm back in the game like it's not gonna fail because what I've learned and I'll give you a little bit of my secret sauce on why my other companies are flourishing and they're seven figures companies. I treat my company, I treat like the game plan for the company like there's no plan B. There's only plan A. Plan A is succeed. Is succeed via we're growing. I want to see this much growth. We have a business. I always start with a business plan. See, when I started Shard Bugs, there's a lot of people out there that were giving me some flack. They're like, oh yeah, you starting a TCG game? Like, well, how does it play? I don't know. I didn't create a game and then create Shard Bugs. I created the LLC, the bank account, all the logistics, started even copywriting early on. I created the business, what is Shard Bugs, okay? I created everything that I knew that I wanted in a game, like the infancy of its game, go direct to consumer, go direct to LGSs. Don't do distro. It doesn't make sense, right? Your volume is not there to justify. You're gonna eat away your margins. You won't make set 2 or 3 happen. Period. I don't care what you say. I knew that I want organized play. That I wanted tournaments. Like I created my idea of how to structure the company and how to structure the growth and all that figured out. When I had all that figured out, then I took the art in the game and created it. That's my methodology of Sharp Books. I made a company first with a business plan in place, and then I said, okay, well, obviously I know it's going to be bug themed, right? Because I already committed to the name, and continue to create the whole aesthetics and the gameplay and all that. So yeah, at a small indie level, if we do, pop 5 to 6,000 boxes per set, we're in the green. We run a pretty efficient, um, you know, production line here with the devs and the artists. So
Man, dude, I could feel your conviction It's palpable in that answer. And with that, unless there's something else that you really want to touch on, we are almost 4 hours in, and I'm sure I'm going to have to clean this up. We're 3 hours and 40 minutes, and I'm going to have to clean this up so that it's not quite going to be this long for everybody. But I really appreciate the time, man. I will say, for the sake of your fans, for the sake of you and your family, I wish the game well. I hope it is successful. I really don't want to see another group of fans get hurt by a game. So that's probably the number one reason I hope it's successful. The number two reason is I hope it is for you and your family as well, because like I say, both sides get hurt when these games fail. So with that said, if people are interested in learning more, if they want to check your game out, what are all the different places that they can go? I'm assuming you've got a Discord, some socials, you're going to have a Kickstarter, if you have a website. Sure. Now's the time. Let's go ahead and plug it all. Okay.
A good central hub of information is, in a way to kind of branch off to the other places that we have other information. Visit our main website, shardbugstcg.com. That's our website. We are on Discord. There's a link to our Discord on our website. There's a link to our Discord on our official Facebook page. And then we have a fantastic link tree that is right now housed in our Instagram. We have an official Instagram. We will be posting the link tree on our website within the next few days. But yeah, we're on IG, Facebook, Discord, on our official website. The Kickstarter, again, March 29th. It's only going to run for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Letting folks know. There is excitement for the game. So my suggestion is go look us up on Kickstarter, Shard Bugs TCG. You'll be able to find us easy. There is a notify me button. Sign up to get notified. I do think we will sell out pretty good. I'm biased, that's fine, but just from market research and seeing how fast our sample packs ran, there was unfortunately some people that are a little bit upset because they literally liquidated in minutes. And some folks unfortunately didn't get any. I understand that. I have no control over that, Ted. I just put product online, and if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think the product should move pretty quickly. So I'd hate for you guys to miss it. Go click the notification button there on Kickstarter and have fun. Even if it does sell out, again, a $1 pledge will get you into a way to get discounted standard edition product during the Kickstarter. So, for the folks that maybe see this video or just look at the game and find it maybe in the last couple of days of the campaign and things are sold out, you can still get the standard edition. Standard edition we should ship out by the end of August. I appreciate the opportunity just to kind of explain not so much the game and, like you said, in terms of its gaming capabilities and what it does and how it plays, but yeah, I feel like new, especially TCGs, collectible games should be asked the hard questions, because sometimes more so than $40 to $50 board games, sometimes the folks that pledge for the TCGs pledge more, and you should be able to ask those hard questions and make sure that the game that you're going to pledge and help crowdfund, it's going to stick around and it's going to do what it says it's going to do. And you got to shake down the creative team and the dev team a little bit to make sure that they're good, honest folks. So,
and in no way am I saying that I thought of all the right questions and did this perfectly. I'm sure there's probably line of discussion that we went down and people were hoping we'd go a little further, and then we changed topics. And guys, I got to tell you, running a discussion like this, these long form discussions, is not perfect. The only thing I could say there is, if you have an idea, if you have some questions, if you wanted to get some more information from Luis that you didn't get from this video, reach out on the Discords. It sounds like he's pretty open to it, and get your questions asked. And ultimately, at the end of the day, hear what other people are saying, but internalize it, assess it. You decide for yourself what you think. And with that, everybody, Take it easy. Thanks again, Luis, for joining, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Thanks, Ed. Bye.